where does Twistzz even fit between all of these categories? Because he can entry, he can close rounds. He's very like a master of everything. And in that way, it does make sense that he would want to be an IGL. But I still would just prefer to have him as he was and not like tamper with something that's great, you know.
Are you tired of your boring old skins? Head to Trade It and trade them for exciting new ones within seconds. With 24/7 support, massive inventory, free giveaways, and low fees. Trade It is the highest rated trading platform in the market. What are you waiting for? Start trading today for a $5 bonus, only on Trade It.
Changing, but one thing remains the same: victories with 1xbet.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at HLTV.org/shop.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Counter-Strike fans across the globe, my webcam is not working. That was not the tech issue. The tech issue was my microphone, but then I rejoined the call as we were meant to be going live. So now I'm just a black screen. And that is basically my life, just a black void, just a hole. That hole that you all feel in your soul. Anyway, shout out to our sponsors, 1xbet. Remember to gamble responsibly and trader.gg. If you're in the marketplace for some skins, go and check them out. It is a Thursday. It's the middle of the day. Actually, technically, it's the afternoon, 4 p.m., but it could be the middle of the day somewhere in the world. Not where Striker is, not where Prof is. Striker, what were you just sucking on? You were just sucking on something.
I was sucking on something. This is my water bottle.
Not water in that bottle, though, is it, mate?
It's like a syrup thing with taurine.
A syrup thing with what?
Taurine.
How do you spell it?
Taurine.
You can't have taurine without urine.
Taurine is a non-proteinogenic, naturally occurring amino sulfic acid that is widely distributed in animal tissue. It is a major constituent of bile and can be found in the large intestine and accounts for up to 0.1% of total human body weight.
What did we learn from this, Chad?
Why are you drinking that? What does it do?
It's just something my girlfriend has for like gym stuff, and it just was in the bottle, so that's why it's that kind of color.
Okay, so it's witchcraft.
There you go. Yeah, it's one of the components in energy drinks.
Okay, Prof, why are you repping a scam organization?
Look, what's a scam organization about it?
Oh, are they not the ones? What was the one with that guy, Availer? What did he do?
No, that's WCG?
WCG, the World Cyber Games.
Not World. What were they called? Jesus Christ. The EFRAG tournament. This is the Chinese one. I think they paid. I think they paid everything.
Oh, the EFRAG was TWC.
TWC, this is true.
The World Championship, I think it was called, right?
True.
I got my acronyms fucked up.
I think the Argentinians never got paid for that, which is crazy.
EFRAG was actually my first job in esports. I was a moderator. No, I never got paid. I was a moderator on the Twitch.
I actually also worked at Defrag, but I actually got paid. So
Racist. Racist. Man.
One of the few.
It wasn't easy. I'm not saying it was easy to get paid, but I got paid the 50 euros or whatever per month that that they made. But no, I'm repping the real esports World Cup. You know, that's my shirt for the day.
Wait, it should say IESF then, shouldn't it?
Yeah, that's also under Saudi Arabia now. So
which apparently is still different. Not I thought it's was
a different tournament.
By the, but
it is a different tournament.
Why?
Yeah.
And they're going on almost at similar times. I don't understand.
I mean,
anyway,
the qualifiers now, but the IESF is going to be
like
in like
October
November
or
or something,
right? Yeah.
Okay. Look, before we get into all that, Prof, you were on holidays. You didn't join us for last week's episode. What were you getting up to? Anything exciting?
I enjoyed going into the YouTube comments of last week's show and seeing like, I hope Prof recovers. I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about? And then like, okay, let's see what kind of lies were said about me. And then it was the thing about anal fissures. And I was like, wasn't lies after all. So.
It's tough, you know.
Yeah,
it is because, and now especially with the amount of time we all spend on the toilet on our phones, I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing anal fissures, if not hemorrhoids. I don't know which one's worse, but just make sure you don't confuse it with blood in your stool, guys. You know, you want to make sure that you understand where the blood is coming from. But it's great that you've recovered. You're looking as healthy as ever.
No, I enjoyed not paying attention to Counter-Strike. It was really nice. Like I expected to come back to so many things, like, oh my god, this guy went over here, like my inbox exploding, oh Prof, how do we do this? But it was like, actually, I mean, there's a lot of messages, but nothing really important happened. I feel like not that nothing happened, but you know, everything kind of as we expected. Nothing really crazy out of the ordinary with all of the roster changes that happened. So I feel pretty nice.
Apart from snacks, I guess, for you.
Yeah,
we didn't know about that for a while,
but we expected something to happen. We just didn't know who was going to replace Uxie, right?
Well, this has just put a whole different spin on the anal fissures because Lord Richie in chat said, not going to lie, with SPUNJ's accent, it sounded like he was saying anal fissures. Now, you could be into some real kinky shit with that.
Anal fishes.
Yeah.
Oh, fishes. Okay.
It's like the gerbil from South Park, but a little bit more aquatic, I guess. Okay, look, let's get into
the summer after all.
Yeah, well, it's heating up outside and in here under the collar. All right, let's get into it. I don't think we need the bumper, do we? Lucas, roll the bumper anyway. Prof, how many minutes do you need to talk about G2? Or not need? No need. How many do you need?
0.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
I will give you more. I'll give you more.
2 minutes about G2. Okay, hold on. I'm setting the bar before you start because you weren't here, so we didn't get your thoughts on it. I will be starting a timer. Get it out on my phone. And then
before you say anything, I just also was in the comments for the last episode. You know how we never talk about G2.
We never talk about G2.
We never talk about G2. And then we made this like special episode. You guys made it. I was not involved. Then the comments were like, what is this obsession with G2? I'm like, how is this? It can never be
I also saw an HLTV comment that said like something like Striker can't wait for to talk about his brothers in G2. I'm like, where did that come from exactly?
You have a sh in your name. You are
I guess Serbian. I am Balkan now.
Yeah.
Okay,
ready?
Are you ready? All right.
Yeah.
And just so everyone can see here, we have the 2 minutes on the screen and the time starts now.
So honestly, my instinctual take or feeling about this snacks move is good. I have to say it's good. I don't know. I know that facts and looking into things a bit better, looking at the roles doesn't really make any sense, but just thinking of snacks, if you think of snacks as snacks, not like GamerLegion snacks, but like the snacks that you know and love from 25 years ago, it kind of makes sense to have him in like lurky and anchory positions. Like you can see that happen. And somehow I just feel there will be some magical connection. This is me just off the top of being on the beach every day in the sun and vibing and being like full positive vibes. This is how I feel about
In like 40-degree heat for a week, I might add.
Yeah, mental, mental exhaustion, mental deprivation of water and brain. But this is how I feel. I know it doesn't make sense, but I have a good feeling about it.
Sometimes it doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just has to be.
I know you all were probably pretty negative. I went through the like community reacts, which is used that article very greatly because I was on Twitter to see like what have people said, and most people were were critical, which I understand.
I don't think we were critical.
Well, maybe confused, flabbergasted even.
I don't feature in those articles because I don't tweet anything after roster changes happen because I'm on 700 different podcasts that I may as well fucking talk about it in long form.
Yeah.
And I think I was more akin to agreeing with Pitter's tweet, which is about them doing good in the short term, but probably tapering out and not doing good in the long term.
I mean, I also think the snacks Taz combo is kind of weird. That's an interesting one. I would have liked someone with more recent coaching experience for this team. That's kind of my problem. That's something. Are you pointing at yourself? That's the time.
Is it coming through?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, nice. But I took some of your time and so did Striker, so you can have an extra 30 seconds.
No, that's kind of it. That's from the top of my head. I guess we'll talk about it through the preview and everything else. I'm excited. It's exciting. You can't say it's not exciting. You can't say that there's not potential there. They're cooking with something, but maybe there's too much spice in this.
It was just mild. It wasn't like a spicy vindaloo. It was just it was a butter chicken. But everybody loves butter chicken.
Butter chicken can be spicy. Depends on who you ask.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's jump into, I guess, Liquid's roster. I had Striker messaging me like every couple of days. Is it JKS? I know it's not this guy. Is it? The last time he asked me, I just sent him a selfie. I just sent him a picture. Striker said, "Is it JKS?" And I sent him this. That's what I sent him. I just sent him that.
Why do you look so round there?
I guess it's the angle of which I took the photo, but also I trimmed the neck beard a bit, which helped with the framing of the face. So I just sent him that photo.
You just outed yourself as a potential source.
But at that moment, sitting one seat away from me, well, actually a slight void because he was at dinner with his parents-in-law. I was sitting next to Twistzz, so if that photo was slightly wider, it would have shown a lot more information. But
how's the wedding?
It was beautiful. It was very very magical. It was a very beautiful venue they had it in, and everything was great. So it was a good evening.
Congratulations to Russell and Miss Van Dolken.
Yeah. So that was I got to sit next to Raban at dinner, which was nice, so I had a good time. But yeah, the roster for Liquid is still rumored to be, as it's not official from Liquid yet, but I believe that the source is citing the Blast roster for their group stage, which is coming up in a couple weeks' time. It is obviously Naf, Twistzz, and Yakinda existing from the core of the old team, minus skullz, minus Zeus, minus Cadian, plus Ultimate, the Polish Orpa. He's about 20 years of age. And JKS, as well as Mitha as the coach.
Yep.
So that's the new Liquid roster. Shock and awe, gentlemen. I've known about this for a while, but what are your opinions on this? How are we feeling about it?
I was getting a bit worried that JKS was seen as this poisoned apple after his time with G2, and I heard that behind the scenes a lot, where like people were kind of skeptical about getting JKS on their teams, and that was from like multiple angles, and I was a bit surprised by that, just because of especially how much of a obvious fit he was into all the positions that Liquid need him for. And just you heard these names like nerds instead of him, and obviously that would have been like more exciting, a bigger star or whatever at this point, and more future in that perhaps. But it would have taken a lot more changes in the team to actually make it work. And then you get into like this G2 discussion again, where it's like, how are they going to make it work where everybody will get what they want? And so Jake is just, I don't know, on the face of it, it just looks like a completely obvious move. At least that's where we can start.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we spoke about it on the show. We're like throwing some names around for Liquid in this role, and it made sense. he's a guy that's proven in the anchor role, and that is free or free-ish from Walt that we know, right? So it's a good move in my opinion. He's also a native English speaker, worked on international teams, different teams. There's nothing to imply that he's going to be kind of like skullz, I would say, where you had promise and potential, but not really proven on the top level. Had very few teams and everything, so you didn't really know what you're getting. I think in JKS you know what you're getting. There's no real question mark, I think, in terms of what you're getting from JKS. I think the bigger question mark is obviously in the opping and who is IGLing. These are the two things that, honestly, considering how big changes and risks they are, I would say it makes sense to also go for someone in the inquiry role that is more known and stable.
Yeah, I think just to circle back on a couple of things here, Nertz being a name that's thrown around, KSCERATO is one that we saw in the headlines. Obviously, we're going to talk about him re-signing with FURIA in a little bit of time. But the key reasons for that, and this is something that Jason would always be preaching to me, and I would always be pushing back, because if I was Liquid at this point, I think they're going to fall under the same category as a G2 or a FaZe, which is just going to be this roster that houses big names and tries to play a looser, not more individual style of Counter-Strike, because if you look at the way that they play, obviously individuals is what drives them through with the moments, but they are playing team-based CS, right? There is rhyme to their reason, or reason to their rhyme, is probably what I should be saying. But the JKS or the Nertz or the KSCERATO essentially would fill a position within that team that would keep them being North American, which, as far as I'm aware, only is going to matter for the next major anyway. But, well, actually, no, it would still matter for future majors, right? Because invites to the event will probably still be regional to some degree. I'm speculating because we don't know.
I think that's a pretty reasonable assumption, because like that's been Valve's position for a long time, that they want some form of a split representation across regions, even though it is merit based. It is based on the previous major. I would say that will remain to some degree.
Yeah. So that's, and it's something that Jason would always be talking about. And I assume that the reason that he talks about that from the angle is not just because he's American and wants Liquid to remain American, is probably because of his history there with the org, as well as likely conversations with the manager, Steve, or maybe Nazgul, right? So I'm sure that he has that. He pushes that not because he necessarily just thinks it for no reason, right? He thinks that's exactly what the org wants based on some good information, I'd assume.
It is like, while we're on that subject though, I'm not so sure that that's actually the best move. Maybe it's going to be better now because they actually gained, what was it, 2 more spots or 1 more spot? I don't remember now, for the next major. But last time it was basically you got 2 losses and you were out, and we saw how they lost to FURIA and Complexity, and they're out. Like, you can make an argument that it's actually in some ways much more punishing to play in the Americas RMR than it is in Europe, because you just have, especially when we had the last gens qualifier, we're not going to have that now, I think, because of the fewer spots, right? But still, it feels like, especially if you want to have a competitive roster, I mean, you kind of have to expect to be able to qualify from Europe regardless. Like, if you can qualify from 32 European teams as the top 16, you don't even have to go deep in a tournament or anything like that. You just have to be better than half of the teams there, which is realistically, not crazy. It's not insane. It's not some massive, like, obviously the competition is much higher in Europe, but realistically getting to the major is not so difficult for a team that's meant to have aspirations for titles. They will beat 3 other teams that are going to be playing in the European RMR, unless they get some wild seeding problems, which is not going to happen anymore. As long as you have something like a starting off point, where you have a seeding that actually is based on some results, which didn't happen to them last time, then you should be fine. You shouldn't get some crazy routes to the major that's going to be impossible just because you got matched up against FaZe, then Vitality, then Navi or something, So I just feel that that's a bit of an overrated angle at this point. Regardless of how the organization actually feels, maybe it is important for them to still be in some sense American, just so that they retain some of the fan base, or they still stay as the biggest name in North America, even though they don't actually have the core anymore. Maybe there's some value in that for them, but I'm just saying, from the competitive perspective, it doesn't to me, honestly, not anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. I would always push back on that anyway, because I consider a team like Liquid to be a world competitor, which in my mind you should be competing
where everyone is competing, right?
Exactly.
I think honestly it worked as a disservice, honestly, to the previous team, considering how much they needed travel back and forth from Europe to North America to play qualifiers.
Yeah.
It just takes away it's time that you could spend, playing a longer and tougher qualifier in Europe. I feel it's going to give you more than flying between continents. It's just a pain in the ass, realistically, and takes so much out of the team. So I don't think it's that important anymore. Kind of on the striker boat. Obviously, the worse you are, the more it matters, because then then you kind of roll the dice. You play less games, therefore higher variance, that you're going to go through. But the better you are, you want to play more games, and that's kind of what all the big teams are always fighting for. The Swiss systems, the double, triple, quadruple elimination formats where they can fuck up and stay alive, because in the long run they know they're going to end up on top.
All right, now we've covered that off. I guess we can focus in a bit more about the two key components that you're talking about here, Prof. Now, Ultimate, he's obviously not very well known. I would see threads every couple of days from people talking about AWPers, and his name literally never came up until it started to get leaked, right? Until the murmurs were coming out, and then people were like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" in their best Conor McGregor impression. So it's somebody who's not on the radar of the general populace at all. He's a 20-year-old kid. He played for Ago that had a Milky and a Fika winner in a Pro League season once upon a time. And then
like 2021, I think, or 22 maybe.
I remember him playing. I remember commentating some of their games, actually. But other than that, for people, it's not really a name that means anything. And then a lot of this also comes with critique of the management, right? So people see this move and the first thing they do is go, well, the manager should be fired with this team, right? And I think something that people need to consider is there is definitely input from, I would say, a lot of input from the players on who they're going to get, right? I would say that Twistzz did an awful lot of scouting, especially so with him picking up the in-game leadership role. Now, would I say that Ultimate would have been their first choice? No, but something that other people probably need to consider is players who are free agents, buyouts. If you're going to spend a certain amount of money for this player, right, because he's benched on a team, but I can get this kid who's mechanically looking very good and we could potentially mold him into something we need, versus we pay this much money for a guy who maybe has already showed his ceiling, has shown his problems. Is that outlay of money worth that to just sign this kid for a short period of time, see what happens? Maybe end of the year, the market's wide open and you can buy someone else. Like some people talking like Hades, Sampayas, like these names that people are throwing around. Imagine trying to buy Sampayas from fucking Falcons.
Yeah.
Like what guys? What
or, if you want to take a massive risk, then simple, like, good luck throwing around millions for a guy who hasn't played in a team for a year,
It's just, it does become kind of crazy. But I think what happens with this roster is, JKS was free because he was a free agent. Ultimate, was he on a Luminar or something?
He was on a Luminar, but realistically, you're not expecting a massive buyout there.
Exactly. So they're getting both of these players for cheap. But one of the conversation points around Liquid has kind of been this cycle that they've been in. And unfortunately, that cycle is going to follow them into this new roster as well. We saw the team with Patsy and Rainwaker. There was a lot of flack about the Rainwaker pickup. It didn't work out, right? That gave them.
It's not like Patsy did any better, to be honest.
No, and where's Patsy now?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that kind of like sent them down this path. And then in hindsight, this current roster, we look at, the previous roster, we look at and we go, oh, that was shit. But at the time when it came together, we didn't think it was going to be shit. We're like, okay, like Zeus, the coach, they're great. We think Cadian, okay, awesome. Some personalities who were all
Cadian's stock was super high up at the time when it was picked up by Liquid. Like, I think everybody thought that this had like title winning potential.
Yeah, and it turned out to be horrible. So, actually, if you look at their results, they weren't miserable.
I think as it went to the end, I think before it came to like Chengdu and Pro League, I think that would have been pretty miserable. But after the whole thing, it's obviously it's not what they would have wanted. But at least they made a bunch of playoffs towards the end. That's kind of salvaged their reputation a little bit at least.
But Twistzz deciding, 24 years of age, I think, to be the in-game leader. This is something which he has chosen to take on, as far as I understand. It's not something that he's been thrust into. And if it's something that he wants to give a crack, obviously there's people who are concerned about it. Are either you concerned about it? Do you think this is going to be one of those situations where star player goes to in-game leading and everything falls apart?
I am. I'm not I would rather not see him undertake this, at least not right now, because I think he's just great as he is. That's how I feel about a lot of players. I think Nico as well is like, you get a player to this level where you would put him in almost any team in the world. Why change, right? Because change will. Can he be better? Like, how can he be better than what he was already? I think that's just it's unreasonable to expect him to be the same as he was plus IGL. Like, there has to be a give and take from somewhere in his game, so we will lose a part of Twistzz that we had that was amazing. That's how I see it, and that's how most likely historically things have been. It's not like we're just pulling this out of our ass when people are like, oh, a secondary opper picking up the op and being like, I'm gonna op. This usually does not work. This like 9 out of 10 times does not. People don't stick with it, and kind of IGLing, what happens, it's not like people never stick to IGLing. I think he can stick, but he is an amazing player as just a player, as a rifler, as someone that can be pretty versatile and help in different facets of the game. And even looking back, the year that FaZe was the team of the year and we were doing like the HLTV awards, it was, where does Twistzz even fit between all of these categories? Because he can entry, he can close rounds, he's very like a master of everything, and in that way it does make sense that he would want to be an IGL, but I still would just prefer to have him as he was and not like tamper with something that's great,
Yeah, I do think that just because of how Liquid was set up until this point. I mean, by the way, I agree with the concern for sure, because this is a guy who also delivers against the best teams consistently. Like, it's not just a guy who will be your start, like who will hit peaks. He just has a very high consistent level regardless of the opposition, and so this is a guy you can rely on at every single point. And I don't know if you can say that for the roster moving forward. And I mean, of course, Naf has that as well aspect to him, but he's not in star positions. He's not going to be changing the courses of games most of the time. He's not going to be the start of the team anymore with how it's set up at the moment. And so are you going to be too reliant on ultimate for him, to open up space? Because he's quite aggressive on T side from what I've seen so far. I'm kind of looking into him a little bit more and talking to people about him to have some testimonies and just get like an article together to tell people who he is and what his style is, and just to get a little bit more
the prosecution
out there about
rests, Your Honor.
Yeah, exactly. But nothing like that. It's more about just trying to show people who he is, because nobody really knows anything about him, right? But what I was going to get to was the thing that will help Twistzz is because how Liquid was set up until now was having an Opera IGL, right? And so Twistzz was already in a lot of the positions that IGLs would put themselves into, because they are very active. They're always going to be in the pack. Sometimes they're going to be up first, but sometimes they're going to be more the support development. But Twistzz is not going to be a Hooksy typing game leader who's just going to run in first everywhere and like jump corners. That's going to be a Kindar in this team. And so you already have that in your team. And as long as you have something like that where you don't have that pressure of entering every site on T side and like being the space taker all the time, I think that obviously will help with his output. Because I mean, yeah, that's just a lot of like jumping corners and all that stuff that he suddenly doesn't have to concern himself with, so he can just look more at the big picture and still stay in somewhat of a star position to have that same output. Of course, like the something that people maybe don't take into consideration so much is once you go into in-game leadership is how much time you have to spend on that as opposed to on your individual level.
Like outside of the server?
Of course, yeah, just prep, game plan creation, all that stuff. A lot of the time, I'm sure Twistzz already was doing that because he was one of the more active pieces on every single roster he was part of. I'm sure even in FaZe, he had a decent amount of input, but this is another level of that. He just has to be the guy who's responsible for that at all times. And especially with Myther coming in, I don't know if I see him as this massive authority or like this guy who has such high knowledge that he will be always responsible for that himself. And Twistzz is going to be more like a co-pilot or whatever.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I'm just a bit concerned how the game plan creation is going to work, how much that's going to tank his individual level, just because he's not going to be able to spend so much time on it.
I definitely think it's going to be the team playing the way Twistzz wants to play.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I think based off of his time with Carrigan, he knows how he wants a team to function. So I think that that will be a big blueprint. Obviously, you need to play to the pieces that you have available within your team. That is going to be a key component of this. But a lot of the concern will mainly be on the T side of how this team is going to function as opposed to the CT side. I think with the CT side, they're going to have strong pieces across the board. I don't think they should have too many issues on the CT side whatsoever. Ultimate being the question mark, of course. But having strong anchors of NAF and JKS, the bigger question regarding NAF and JKS is which is going to be the active lurk, right? Which is going to be the player, because you're going to have your pack, which on a lot of maps, like a Mirage, for example, is going to consist of your Twistzz, your Kinders, and your ultimates taking the mid control. But it's on those extremities of having to make those plays. Is it going to be NAF or is it going to be JKS who has to be more active? Because somebody has to make a play, right? Somebody has to use the information that the team is getting to make that play. And that can't be a waypoint type decision. It can't be a, hey, Twistzz, can I make that play now? And both of them can't be pussies. Somebody actually has to go for a move. Whether it works or it doesn't work, you need to be able to make those timings. So one of the two of them is going to have to make that adjustment within their game.
Do you think, what if you had to guess which one would it be?
Well, I'm not going to answer that question because I know the answer.
You know.
So there's, and I don't want to.
Look,
I don't want to tell the world how they're going to play. They haven't even pracked yet. So
okay, my view of it is NAF is probably going to be the one who's going to be taking steps back to accommodate everybody, as he has always been. I mean, even
he hasn't always been like that.
Okay, but
more
for a while
history.
now. For a while now, he has been doing that, and he's always been a very versatile player. So I would imagine he would take a step back to allow for JKS to have more of his preferred roles, whichever part that means.
I don't even know who has which preferred roles between these anymore, because like JKS also had a bit of like aggression in him in recent times. Phase stand instant changed them, I feel like, and then NAF also in certain times was a bit more aggressive. So I think it's more about vibes than either of them can't do it. And this is like the whole, just reading comments about, let's say, the G2 situation and some other teams, like, why are people saying that these are pro players, they can play any role? Like, it's such a simplistic view, and also just one that has proven time and time again to not be true. Like, there are players that can play different roles, and there are players that adapt, and there's, people change positions from tournament to tournament, and it's not the end of the world. But generally, you don't really see a player go from like full-on baiter to being opening entry player. This does not happen. And when it happens, usually it's like getting some talent from a tier 2, tier 3 team, putting him into like roles that he's not played before. What happens? They play like shit. So we have seen that roles do matter. But I think in the NAF and JKS situation, both have enough versatility to play either of these, lurky roles. Like they both fit in that. I don't think that's I
don't think there's going to be any point of contention in that, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of Counter-Strike at the moment, though, is taking the timings with the information you get. And that's the one problem that we don't get the insight in, is when a match is live, we get to see all the information. We don't actually know what's being communicated. Right. So for players to make the timings, I think a very good player to look at who's great at taking timings is somebody like Nerds. But the biggest issue with that is the timing that you think you have based off the information that you've been given may not always be true, right? Like you're making a mental picture of what you think that the defense is shaping up to look like, or even the attack, what the round they're trying to put together, and you make a calculated call or what you think is, and you walk out and there's still a motherfucker holding that angle and you die, and it's like, well, fuck, right? So, but that is a bit of Counter-Strike.
If I don't know if any of you watched, but the Maui Snake interview with Stewie, and as crazy as that whole interview was, there's one moment when they talk about Nexa and like a situation where Nexa dies, like in pit watching short, and someone just comes along and kills him, and then they lose like a 2v5 or some shit. I don't remember, on Inferno. And Stewie just says like someone called, both are short. So from our perspective, Nexa looks like a complete bot in this situation. And of course, he had some other rounds where, most likely it was his fault. And then you add something that is completely not his fault because he's trusting his teammate and what he's calling, which you probably should do if you're in a team. And then then everyone's like, look at this guy, he doesn't know what he's doing, he's dying like an idiot, you know. Obviously he could be there, but yeah, there's so much that's missing. And also you don't really know sound, how it, we know how sound works, but you know, you're not sure who heard what and how they're reacting based off of that or not. So from a viewer perspective, it's very hard to know.
And a lot of this tilt that people talk about with players, most of that tilt gets sacrificed in communication, right? Because a player will then be more like they'll go more inward. So when comms are good and things are flowing in a team and things are working nicely, that's when the information is perfect, right? Like a guy's calling what he's heard, like which sounds basic, right? But like to the detail, right? Not I think. You never hear I thinks. It's just things. And then people are always offering because they're like things are such a well-oiled machine at that point. But when people are starting to regress and be a little bit more emo, the comms are probably the first thing that start to go down a little bit. And especially in pressure games where things are hectic, it's also quite hard to filter that. So yeah, look, I don't know how we even got to this, but
yeah, I don't know. We went on a little bit of a
tangent. We digress. But
talking about Ultimate, I just wanted to ask Striker, from your knowledge so far of this guy, can you give us like a one-liner? What type of an opera is he?
I mean, what I was told by, I think this was Mestal from their time together on NOM. This was like the Israeli kind of majority team that Ultimate played in for like, I don't know, 4 months, maybe a year ago. Maybe at the end of last year, I think it was. He said he's more aggressive on T side than CT. That would be like one point. And from what I was looking through stats, that seemed to be the case. He seems to be taking the initiative. I haven't looked into demos yet because I'm still waiting for... I was talking to Forlan, and I'm just waiting for him to answer some questions I had about Ultimate before I dive more deeper into his playstyle. I have a little funny tidbit from Pasha, though. He was in the Pasha gaming camp, Ultimate was. And this was around 21, I think. And that was the time when Smoya was on Fnatic. And apparently when Smoya got kicked and the news came out, Pasha went to Karn and went to Fnatic and offered him Ultimate as the offer for a replacement for Smoya. Apparently he kind of like Fnatic never really bit onto that, never really actually looked into him, but just like a little snippet where Pasha already was thinking about this guy, you know, potentially making a step to tier 1 3 years ago already, or whatever it is, maybe 3-4 years ago now. So yeah, that's what I've gathered so far.
It is going to be interesting with these younger names, right? Because we don't have the We Play Academy League anymore, which for a few years there was where we saw the names get an option to play against comparable opponents, right? But now it's like Liquid have taken a punt on this guy who is, like we mentioned, very young and very unknown. And it's like, oh, who the fuck is this? Well, how are they going to get, you know, noticed? I guess you have to be looking.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of grind through the CCTs and the online tournaments and everything. Realistically, looking at he didn't play that much. That's the biggest downside, obviously. But if you look at this year, he has 17 maps against top 50, like 111 rating. He played against some decent teams at recent times, like Bait, GamerLegion, Sampi, 3D Max, like Eyeballers. These are all teams he played recently and like posted pretty good ratings. Like I'm gonna admit, he's not been on my radar at all. But looking at just this year, looks pretty okay. Like it's not... I thought it was much worse, honestly, because I was like, who the fuck is this guy? But looking into it a bit, there is some promise. Obviously, he is also joining Liquid, which is a completely different level of play and expectation and pressure and teammates, and not just like, you know, individual moves, but how you communicate, how you play man advantage or disadvantage situations. So there's going to be a huge step up for him, and see if he can live up to it. I'm really curious to see, because as you said, there must have been something they spotted in this guy that they liked. Obviously, also Liquid scouting has sometimes been pretty hit or miss.
Rainmaker doesn't help the category, does it?
Yeah. So there's a bit of, I think, reasonable skepticism about the guy. But ultimately, pun not intended at all, he's a low risk, I would say. As you said, you play out the season, and then by Christmas. Who knows? Maybe someone else is up for grabs.
Yeah.
And if not, if this guy proves to be good, then you got a diamond in the rough that you can work with.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, I mean, especially looking at the options, I think, Chad, you were talking about it earlier about some of the other names not necessarily being the cheapest. And also, like if you look at Hades, for example, that was probably the only real cheap option from like more proven names that they would have gone after. And of course, I mean, that would have been possible, but it seems, especially from the aggressive angle, it seems Twistzz wanted somebody who's more, who's taking more initiative than Hades was, because Hades was more passive, I would say. So I'm curious if that came down to a stylistic difference, and if for some reason maybe Twistzz is going to be taking a little bit of a step back because of his in-game leadership and in terms of initiative he's taking for entering. As I said before, like obviously the main part of that is going to be on Yakindar, but like more finding openings, and that's more an Alper's thing anyway. Kind of like finding creative angles and getting set up for it and stuff like that. So I'm curious if that's part of the reasoning. Obviously, that's like Hades probably would have been kind of a safe bet, especially with how he's been performing in CS2. But then again, I feel like maybe he was a little bit overrated, Hades, just because of he's got decent stats, but when you look at him when he's performing against the top teams, there's a definite drop. And that happens to almost everybody, but it is more noticeable with him, I would say. So maybe that's also a part of it, and like this is kind of old news now, but there was problem with confidence there historically, and so I'm curious if that's like all these factors could be something that they were taking into consideration.
For me, when I look at this and I see the community sentiment, I don't understand why it has to be like so negative out of the gate, because what if he is good? Obviously, it's more likely that he won't be good, but what if he is good, right? And also, it doesn't help to shit on this before it even happens.
Yeah.
Like, if they play a couple of tournaments and he looks out of the water, it's like, well, yeah, this guy is no good. And then you guys can be like, yeah, we were right. But what is the point of being so negative about it before it even happens? I don't get it.
Hashtag vibes, and people just like to be negative. But at the same time, I understand it more when it's like a roster change, like X for Y, and then you go and directly compare players. But in this case, it's a bit more complicated situation than, we wanted a new Opper. We're replacing, Hades for Senpais. And then if Senpais shit, then there's a reason to be like, why'd you do this? This is so stupid. But this is a more, convoluted situation.
Yeah. And I mean, another option that would have been there was like WATO, who just got benched, which kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't really expect that because, as far as I know, he doesn't actually have a spot yet anywhere else. So I wonder what that's about. If that's just a difference, like if he decided to leave Monte at that point, or what happened there. But considering the situation with Ukraine, he like at any point he could just be prevented from crossing the border.
Yeah,
and that's a massive risk to take. And especially like if that would be your like 1+1 for one, like if you want him to actually be an Opera IGL and you put all the eggs in that basket, that is a hell of a risk to take.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, like that's another, let's say, now obvious option, that maybe isn't so obvious when you look a little bit deeper into it. So, and also, that would have taken away their America's RMR spot. So that's another factor.
But same type of consideration if you wanted to get like Demka as an anchor. I think he's great. I think Demka's a really good player. But you have the same problem if he was to play for an international team. He is Ukrainian and he lives in Ukraine, so he would have a really tough time getting out of there. So it's unfortunate for those guys, the way that the world is and how tough it is for them to get in and out of their country at the moment. I want to. Well, this already exists on the record because I had a conversation about this a couple of weeks ago. But the game, as far as it's going and evolving, right? We're not at a point where anybody is doing anything crazy. All of the top teams play quite a similar style of Counter-Strike. Right, a lot of it is throwing these different opening configurations of util to imply or to take certain space, right? And there's obviously head-on counters, but they normally require like a lot of util or direct like duels, and those become coin tosses. Like think about mid fights on Ancient, for example. If you can't get out mid and your Heaven guy can't get across Heaven, then on the T side you've used a red smoke, a cave smoke, a B lane molly, 2 mid nades, 4 flashes, and you've used a lot of util in the start, like for your opening move, right? And there's a lot of maps where you have stuff like that going on. And then I think about utility usage. Well, ever since Astralis, everybody has been quite good with their util usage. The only thing at the moment with CS2 that is still a little bit being worked out, is the best or most optimal ways to use smoke clearing, right? That is the one thing at the moment which I think could definitely have more into it in the future, and we'll see teams who become very proficient, or situations that are better to use it than others, or teams who hold on to their nades for long, whatever, right? I'm sure there'll be some conversation about that down the line. So the next evolution for the game for me doesn't feel like it's going to necessarily be a tactical one. It's going to be a firepower element across all members of the team. And I don't know if this is going to happen in the next 2 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years, but at some point, the in-game leader will need to be a comparable level fragger, not somebody who is offering a 0.8 rating, right? It's going to have to be someone who's closer to a 1 rating than a 0.8 rating, and all pieces within the team are going to need to contribute in how the game is played and understanding, and what we're already doing now in terms of our decision tree. So I think the next evolution for the game will come with big fragging in-game leaders like Twistzz. Don't have to be the star player of the team, but somebody who is delivering high impact. And again, I don't know when that is going to be the case, or if it will ever be the case. But imagine we were living in that era, which we were damn close to. If Nico was the in-game leader of G2, Twistzz was the in-game leader of Liquid, Device is the in-game leader of Astralis. Like, okay, holy shit. We all of those players can make a huge difference. And then that's where it's going to become about the accountability of each and every member in the team and the support staff. But I don't know. That's a conversation for 5 to 10 years.
I just had like another point about the negativity side. I think it's always going to come when a big team makes not a big move, not an exciting move, like for a proven name already. But then again, like we saw, FaZe go for names like Brokey, like that came out of completely nowhere. He wasn't even an Alper at that point, and look where he is now, So at some point, you just have to trust and you have to see. Because like, what's the point of hating on it now? Like, you don't know anything about this guy. You can look into him, you can look at his demos, and then you can tell me if there's something in there that you saw that you think is going to be shit. I understand like holding like these big orgs to such a high level that they always have to go for somebody that's proven all that stuff. But like, you do have to bring up, you have to take a risk, especially if you don't have the options. And we were talking about some of the other options maybe not being the most ideal anyway, or being very expensive. If it was like a Sampaius, that would have been a hell of an expensive move, unless Falcons wanted him out already. So like, from all these perspectives, I don't hate it. As everybody else, I'm waiting to see how that pans out, because who the fuck knows at this point? Like, the guy hasn't played against top tier teams. He has like one game against Navi where he played well from 2 years ago with Ago. That's the only thing that we can go off of, that he has one game that he played against a good team that he actually played well in. So like, as far as your evidence goes, it's just, there is none. You just have to hope for the best.
All right. Well, let's kind of put a bow on Liquid for now. We won't be seeing them until the Blast groups, so they still have a little bit of extra time to get the practice underway. Should we jump into a team that we will be seeing?
Just quick, what are our expectations from this team?
To make the major?
Yes.
I was going to say like that's kind of like a given, but
10 to 15 area for this year. Is that, I don't think.
Well, I don't think
they're like championship contenders until I see more, right? Maybe they will be, but I think that's kind of where I put them, like top 8, like 8th in the world. Like that's the upper limit, and then lower like 15 to 20.
Well, I think the thing is, with the amount of unknowns within this team, if anybody was putting the expectations high, it would be with the potential, not based off of the fact. And the fact is, this is the first team that Twistzz is in-game leading. As Striker was just saying, this is Ultimate's first tier 1 team playing against the best other Counter-Strike players and AWPers in the world. This is a opportunity for Yakinda to turn it around, which he already was on a little bit more of an uptick in recent times, but still has this negative stigma around him not living up to the standard that he provided back when he was under Jame. So there's 3 elements right there. Not only that, now you have Mithra as a coach of this team. He was obviously coaching Apex within that stint, and then you go further back in time with Danish teams. So how is he going to contribute to this roster? JKS hasn't been playing professional CS2. The last event that he played was IEM Sydney of last year. So he's been out of the professional circuit since that time. He's also now 28 years of age, or 27. I forget how old you are, Justin.
I think he's 28 now too.
Probably. His birthday's late in the year.
Yes.
So there's also those things all to consider right there. I think align more with your expectation that you've just put out there, Prof, as opposed to them being one of the top 5 best teams in the world for sure.
Geez, how's JKS about to be 29? December.
Tell me where the years have gone, Striker. I'd love to know, mate. Fucking hell. He joined Vox Ebony when he was 18.
Yeah, that's why.
Cool. Okay, let's talk a little bit about FURIA. As we mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, KSCERATO and Yuri have re-signed, which I guess is quite a divisive thing within itself because of the interest that there's been around KSCERATO for him to potentially go to different projects of international teams. It's quite clear now he wants to operate more down the Tabson route.
I hate this man, by the way.
What do you hate?
He's in prison himself by his own choice.
He's not in prison, mate.
Himself. That's why I said.
It's like, what is it?
It's been, so he signed in 2018 is when FURIA started kind of competing at the, like at a higher level. That's when they signed like the 5-year, or like 2019, obviously it would have been, because now it's 24, right? When he signed the 5-year contract with FURIA. Since then, he's had some interest, just said no, straight up said no to it. And then he extends for another 3 years. For 8 years of your career, you're spending with one team that hasn't achieved anything so far. Not achieved anything for his type of a player, you know, because he's a guy that a lot of, like, he would improve a lot of teams out there. Like any top team you would put him on, he would probably be at least 1-for-1, just as good as the player he would be replacing, if not better.
But hold up. At what point do we stop this? Because he doesn't want to do that.
That's my point. I hate it because it's his choice.
It's like this whole prison analogy. It's like it only works if it's the Pablo Escobar prison where he built a prison for himself.
There's no escape.
Went there, invited all his mates in. That's KSCERATO's FURIA prison, right? This is his choice. He's having a great time there. Everybody's loving it. There's no problem. The only people that find the problem is like maybe someone from the outside, not him.
That's exactly the situation. Yeah.
Nobody should feel bad for KSCERATO.
No, I don't feel bad for him.
Nobody should shed a single tear about what his career should have been. Same as Tabson. If they want to continue to play in the projects that they're playing in, we should merely respect that. Just like Stewie doesn't want to be spoken about, guys. We should respect these things and leave them where they lie. And then we just talk about them being a team that maybe will be around the same as what we were just discussing with Liquid. You know, somewhere in the top 20, maybe close to the top 10 occasionally, but never going to be great, never going to be amazing. And as long as you're getting kills and baiting your team every round, who cares? Just keep the money coming.
Let's just...
Winning's not for everybody, Prof. It's only for winners. I wish I was.
You mean Striker? I'm barely involved in this conversation.
I was looking at how old KSCERATO is. So he's 24 now. So his contract with his new contract with FURIA is going to end at 27. And imagine it just goes the way that it has been so far. And there's no indication that it won't. There's no indication that it will get better from here at the moment. So what? Until 27, you are realistically top player any of the year that you've played, and you haven't been just because of sample size, effectively. Because you haven't been able to play enough with this team to actually get there. And then for all those years, you're just not going to win anything, even though you obviously have the quality for it.
So you're saying this team, you're not excited about it? So the change of removing Gary, but actually making him head of esports now.
More powerful.
And then,
more powerful.
And then putting the assistant coach from FURIA into, not the assistant, he was the academy coach, if I remember correctly, to be the main coach, and adding 2 international assistant coaches in Innershine and Lucid. This is not, you don't feel like these are big changes that are like signaling a new era of FURIA.
I think even the player one is like up in the air. Like if you look at, of course, like skullz is obviously going to be better than Kai. There's no denying about that. But Kai was never supposed to be there in the first place. So it's more like, how does he even fit in? Because obviously, like a lot of the spots that he has would have been kind of close to KSCERATO anyway. So there's just going to be a lot of passive pieces on this team. Obviously, you know, Yuri's pretty aggressive. Cho's pretty aggressive. Fallen for an uppers realist is pretty aggressive. But I don't know if it's enough for you to have a real difference maker. But it's just kind of, it's such a, it's a lateral move to me at best.
It's not surely not a lateral move.
I mean, not
Kai-
compared to Kai. I said like Kai. Let's just forget that he was there. He was not supposed to be there, regardless of what happened anyway. You know. But compare him to Art. Is he actually
Yes,
going to be that much
but
better than Art?
This is the problem. This is the issue. They got rid of Art, and then they kept a kid fucking sleeping on their couch for 3 months. Like they haven't even played in the post Art era yet because they decided just to use this academy guy. And this is a question that I'd love to throw to the room. Who the fuck would they have gotten if Liquid worked out and skullz was staying on the team? Like they got.
I mean, there's a million Brazilian players they probably could have gotten. I don't know how many of them are actually available, but
they went with skullz, which only became on the market recently, right? So kind of crazy.
Yeah, maybe that's what they were exactly waiting for, you know, to see if that was going to work out.
Didn't Phelps say no already? So you know, that was the rumor that Phelps said no to FURIA.
Apparently so. Yeah.
So something like that floating around. I don't know if that's true.
I think,
but that would be kind of crazy to me. By the way, like that they actually wanted to get him in for the first place, like fine, but that he actually said no to it is insane.
I think this will be better than it was with Art, but that's only if they play current meta Counter-Strike, and maybe Innershine and Lucid can bring them up to a bit more of a European standard. I think they're in Malta at the moment. I think I saw an.
But I don't think they have any influence on this team. What kind of influence will they have on the team, which is Brazilian with a Brazilian coach and Fallen in-game leading? Like
I think
they can provide whatever these guys ask them to provide, but I don't think they can change anything.
Well, this is the thing. If that's going to be the case, then why even bring these guys in the first place? This is what I think is the reason that they have this. How do we say his name? Sid? I
don't know.
Whatever. The assistant coach who's now the main coach. I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm sure it has some accent to it. But he is essentially, it's better to have him behind the team than a coach who doesn't speak Portuguese.
Of course, yeah.
Because you're going to find yourself in a situation where they're communicating the entire game in Portuguese. You don't understand what's happening. If the two analysts or like Innershine and Lucid are able to offer up the answers, this guy just takes their homework, and all he needs to be there is in the timeouts to offer up the stuff that's already been discussed. So if they're stupid, they will just let Fallen run everything. But if they're smart and they want to embrace the modern game, they will let these two come and have some influence and help mold and shape them, because you can have the core that needs to be more aggressive of Yuri, Cello, and Fallen. Fine. That can be your map control 3. Then you can obviously have your anchors. And then you'd have KSCERATO as the more active anchor out of the two, the one making them plays and going for the timings, and skullz as the more passive guy, right? And I think skullz will perform better in a Portuguese-speaking team than he will on an English-speaking team.
Yeah, but that's probably true, yeah.
So I think they will be better than they were, but how good can they be? I don't know. I think the jury's still out on that one. I wanted to talk about the scene. You saw what I put in Discord earlier. I wanted to talk about that at some point. Do we want to? Can we do that before we do the tier list? Because I think it's important to contextualize the direction that we're going.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Lucas, can you run an ad break and we'll come back and then we'll get into that. Do you guys want to talk about anything more with the Brazilians before we run this ad break?
No, I mean, as you said, like at least they have a team now at this like whole interim period where no one really was interested to see them play, except, you know, the Brazilian fan base was boring as fuck. So now we can actually judge this team. Now they have like an actual 5.
I'm curious just about what the thinking is behind bringing in 2 other guys as well from the international side. It's like, okay, you get a new coach already, so that's like kind of a big change to a team, we're assuming. And then you get 2 more. Like, is that too much? Is that too much input, or are they doing it really just to try to get more input in, and so that they can kind of get out of their own loop, you know, and get out of their mindset and try to introduce something fresher to the system? I don't know. I mean, that must be the reason, but I feel like it's too many people at the same time for it to actually work. And I'm curious about where that's going to take them.
Well, a few things to look out for. All right, Lucas, run this ad break. We'll be right back, guys.
Are you tired of your boring old skins? Head to Trade It and trade them for exciting new ones within seconds. With 24/7 support, massive inventory, free giveaways, and low fees. Trade It is the highest rated trading platform in the market. What are you waiting for? Start trading today for a $5 bonus, only on Trade It.
thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at HLTV.org/shop.
Alrighty, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us through the ad break. There should be some exciting roster change news coming very soon. But first, we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about things from a broader perspective, because we're about to get back underway with the second season of 2024. And I think it's important because not only do we do some punditry, some commentary, some journalism, some live shows, some entertainment, all those different things into hats, we should also try and educate, right? Because I think that's important. And a season now and for the foreseeable future will be structured with the major at the end. We can bring up this slide that I was working on today, Lucas, please. And this is something that we talk about a lot when we're talking about Counter-Strike. It's about when teams are going to time their peaks and what they're trying to peak for. And I think it's different for most teams. But I would say one of the things that is integral is peaking for what is at the tippy top of that mountain right there, which is the Shanghai Major, the last event of the season. So we have from July 15 to December 15, the season, 154 days, and only one major champion is available, right? And when it all kicks off, starting on, well, Monday, technically, the tournament break ends on Monday, the 15th of July. The players are already back practicing, or at least most of them, and some have been going throughout. And I think at the moment, and maybe why there's so much like hating and all of this that happens from community sentiment, is we go into a lot of these events and people are just expecting every team or their favorite team or the team who they think is the best to win every event. And I don't think that's necessarily a realistic expectation. So what I have created here, and I didn't spend too much time on this, it's just a path to the major, which I said at the top of the mountain is the perfect world major in Shanghai. And where we start is the Esports World Cup next week in Saudi Arabia. And that's the first event of the season, right? And then we go through the rest. These are some of the more major events that are going to be happening throughout and the level of importance. I put on one of the little peaks of the mountain there, Cologne, which would be the next most important and prestigious event, I would say, throughout this season. Are there any questions or takeaways from the two of you gentlemen?
First thought, just looking at this, like I really like what you did here. It's really great. A+ for presentation and A for artistic expression.
Thank you.
Looking at it, I think the only change I would make, if we were making it like the higher,
I'd put Cologne higher,
important.
but I didn't draw the mountains myself.
Yeah. I think the only difference here is I think Cologne is probably higher than all of these tournaments that are coming later, including the fall finals, world finals, and the Rio. I think Cologne should be a bit higher, and these all should be a bit lower, but still higher than Esports World Cup, Sky Esports, and the group stages for Blast and EPL, right? That's the only difference. But obviously, the first peak being Cologne, and then kind of, I don't want to say a lull, but let's say a bit less expectations for a while, and then a build up again towards the big peak, which is the major. Yeah,
I agree with that, and you're right. If I drawn this, Cologne would be much higher, and it's not meant to necessarily demonstrate a ramp up in terms of importance, just getting closer and closer to the peak of the major. So you all might need to use your imagination there a little bit. But I think Cologne, yes, is the second most. I should have put another flag there. That's what I should have done. A flag would have helped represent that better. But I think that is the key. Is Cologne is in 3 weeks' time. So we have the Esports World Cup. Then we have Sky Esports, which is quite small considering the level of teams attending. Then we have Blast Groups, which is normally our soft launch to the start of the season. Now it's got a bit more of a condensed format, and then straight into a prestigious event like Cologne. So, Striker, that's not a lot of time for these teams, especially the newer rosters, to get in any great form.
I would say, I mean, of course, the ones that actually don't play in EWC, though, those are probably going to be the ones that are going to struggle the most, just because of, yeah, I mean, then you have kind of like the delayed start of groups straight into Cologne, as we would have it in the previous year, right? Or even at the beginning of the year with groups straight into Katowice, basically. So from that, I think that's just going to put the same pressure on the new teams as it would have been otherwise, because what they'll have one event to play together before they go straight into Cologne. So realistically, for the likes of Cloud9, Liquid, they're probably not going to see Cologne as G2. I mean, they're playing in EWC, so they have a little bit more of a ramp up. So they're going to have, what, 2 events up before Cologne. So it's obviously not a lot of time because it's less than a month, but it's still a couple of events. It's still reasonable amount of officials, reasonable amount of maps that you're going to get to play before you have to peak. Obviously, it's not like I would expect them to be at their best, but at least it will be, Cologne will still be important for them. While I think for Liquid, Cloud9, probably not so much, just because they like having some realistic expectations. Like, you can't peak after one event together, especially after making changes as big as this. So even though I'm sure they would like to perform as well as they can in Cologne, I mean, who wouldn't? It's probably unrealistic to expect them to finish anywhere high, and it's more actual ramp up towards the major where we can expect more from those types of teams.
I think this is because one thing that we tend to have a problem with when we come into these seasons is, and this one we haven't had that many roster changes. Like everyone typing about the Cloud9 one, we'll get to that in a minute. But you know, how do you weigh all of these different teams up against each other, right? Because it's difficult to do. They all have different starting blocks. Lucas, if you could go back to the slide and then go down, there's 2 more slides there that are just below that one, and these ones are definitely not as pretty. If you could bring up the one, slide number 2, this is the current rosters, like lifespan in months. And I just saw this basic info from HLTV. Everyone can do it and put it in a lovely little graph. But Liquid and G2, well, no, they don't have any. Same as FURIA, right? Those are the teams. I didn't do all the teams. Cloud9's not on here, for example. But Astralis have been together for 4 months. Spirit for 6. The longest is Complexity at a year. Mongols have been for a good 10 months, right? So you can see a bit of a disparity here, and not everybody has the same starting. So that starting mark as well is different for different teams. Like FaZe and Vitality towards the tail end of the season were probably a little bit disappointed, right? So do they want to hit the ground running, or are they just going to be more realistic and say, hey, we just want to make sure we're hitting our peak for the major, for the RMR, and for Cologne, right? Is that going to be their main focuses, or do they think, hey, we're high caliber teams and we want to try and be winning a lot of these events along the way? So these are all questions that we don't have the answers to, but it doesn't get shared with us really either, because teams don't come out and say, hey, this is just a warm-up event for us. And maybe that's got something to do with them being partner events, which does hurt the transparency. And hopefully that's not the case next year. Teams can come out and say, yeah, this is just a warm-up event, because I think that helps set the audience expectations too.
But I think we do here, like, at least even if they don't say it outright, you can kind of tell from the way that they prepare it. If you talk to them a little bit about how much focus they put in before this event, you know, like a lot of the time, you know, I remember like one specific one would be for like Vitality for spring final last year or something. They literally took a break for like 3 weeks leading up to that event. So that already tells you a lot about their mindset for that tournament, you know, and like them lacking focus in that time, you know. So you still get enough to have a decent idea. It's just more like reading between the lines.
Yeah, I really like the difference if you go between these two, like lifespan and maps played. Like if you go back and forth, the one team that really steps up is Virtus Pro. Like considering how small their lifespan is, but they actually played more. Comparison to everyone else is like going down, and they're going up in comparison. It just shows, in my opinion, that they played almost too much after the electronic change and didn't have proper time to do any practice or anything. So it'll be interesting to see them after the break when they had more time to put things together.
Yeah, I just wanted to show these visuals to everybody because it's something that we don't really like. We talk about it maybe on a desk, or, you know, or they have this mini game, but to look at it like this, I think it helps show where maybe team expectations should be at as well. And also complexity, we don't consider them a top 5 team in the world, right? But they're obviously happy with what they can get
Yeah.
with the roster in terms of the funding and everything.
I
else,
think
so.
what this shows is like teams like Vitality, FaZe, Navi are in that area where usually roster changes happen if they are not winning, right? And I think for all three of these teams, they've been leading the conversations about roster changes. If we remove like Liquid and G2 and obviously Furia, who have already made them, these seem to be the next ones in line. And Complexity and Mongols, as you said, obviously outliers, since the expectations are completely different for these teams, and they've been, I would say, Mongols overachieving. Complexity depends from period to period, sometimes over, sometimes underperforming.
Yeah, Mongols underperforming today online. They bombed out of the Blast qualifier, unfortunately. Online Counter-Strike, best of ones. Who cares? Okay, so I don't have too much more to add in that regard. I suppose we should talk about this Cloud9 news just quickly, and then we can get into doing the roster change tier list.
Yeah.
So let me just change the little bit at the bottom. Cloud9 roster announced. Yay. I'll even put yay. And I'll link Lucas the tweet, and Lucas can bring the tweet up, and we can see the graphic. Okay, awesome. So the team was rumored to be HeavyGod, interz, and Icy, and guess what? It's HeavyGod, interz, and Icy. I think probably the more interesting and crazy story piece of this is the interz one for me. He was the kid discarded early from Gambit, and then he ends up back with Axel, at least, or where the remnants of that team was.
Signifies a lot with this Cloud9 roster, because if you think about it, the interz was actually the one who's like the change of interz was the one that kicked all this off.
Signaled the downfall.
Yeah, exactly. Where Buster came in. I don't realistically think that it was the wrong move to remove him, but just maybe it just didn't matter, at that time, because like things happened down the line anyway that probably would have happened regardless of if he or Buster was on this roster. So just a little bit of a story there.
I hope he has a bit more autonomy as a player and isn't just a full anchor bitch. Like I want to see him do more. I don't want to just see him just sit and do nothing, because no one as a player should ever do that. So I hope to get a bit more out of him. HeavyGod, obviously, that's one that's been in the conversation for a very long time. People have been saying that he speaks Russian. Interesting move for him, I guess, to make. It is definitely an upgrade over OG. That's not even a conversation point. So I think he is the big signing. Pun not intended. He's the massive signing for this roster, right? He's the one where I think that the potential star power may have to come from alongside of Axel. And Axel and interz, I played a Faceit game with them, and they didn't communicate a lot, and it made me sad. So,
well, neither of them are particularly good English speakers. So,
yeah, I told Axel that I'd take him to Disneyland to cheer him up. I don't even know if he understood what I said, but I think we won the game, so it's okay.
But okay. I just saw a forum thread that was minus interz, and I thought people are already asking for him to be removed, but it was just minus interz plus interz, so that's fine. Okay. I was like, Jesus Christ, guys, like 11 minutes on a roster already asking for him to be cut. Honestly, it is a roster. It's not bad.
It is a roster.
It is a roster. There are 5 players.
It's not bad. Like, honestly, the signings, I think the interz one's kind of weird, but also haven't seen him play in forever. He's been in this like TSM purgatory. Loved him when he was on Cloud9 with all of his limitations, but also did some nice stuff to set up like Shiro and the rest of the guys on the server back then. I see somewhat promising, but I wasn't too impressed when I watched him play. Like, at least
you just remember that NIP overpass game.
Yeah, I saw some other games, I think, where he wasn't that amazing. But obviously, there's some promise. I think it's an okay lineup if we disregard what Cloud9 had before and just start fresh.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Boom, it's just there as the IGL. I think we believe that he can do something. Axile had a bit of an uptick in CS2 towards the end of the lineup, so there's reasons that we can believe that this lineup is not going to be shit. And obviously HeavyGod a lot of promise there. So I think they can be competitive in the like top 20-ish, aiming towards the to get maybe close to top 10. That's kind of where I see this lineup. Honestly,
yeah.
okay. At least they have a lineup now.
I was just thinking of poor Jack and thinking like he reinvested in Counter-Strike and then he got this absolute clusterfuck of a roster.
Yeah.
This is what he's ended up with.
I mean, especially if you consider like that they splashed out a lot for the Perfecto electronic one, and that would have been
but
yeah,
I
that
feel
obviously
like
didn't
he
pan
got
out, and then he got a lot of it back probably for the sales to VP. So, and possibly one that will come for Perfecto at some point, hopefully, because he doesn't deserve to just stay on a bench and not do anything because he's locked behind a big contract. But yeah, I am on the same boat. Like if I was looking at this in complete isolation and just did not think about what Cloud9 could have been and what the previous roster was, that's actually filling me with a little bit of hope, because maybe from the way
we disregard everything that happened.
No, but the point I was going to make is because of how horribly the previous lineup failed, and you can kind of point it to being down to Shiro just giving up on this roster too quickly or whatever it is, that obviously played a big factor in this lineup kind of spiraling because of the Opera situation and them never really getting one up until now. But if you don't look at that, obviously there were some issues that probably weren't fixable with just one roster change. So just throwing the core out of the window and just getting some younger players in who don't have these massive expectations and who are more hungry, maybe, who are just going to be a kind of a reset in mentality as well for Boomich and Exile. I think that makes a lot of sense. interz was always kind of the soldier player who, as I said, I don't think he's going to make a massive difference to a team, except for the fact that you can like offload a lot of the bad positions on him and he's going to be fine with it. Like we've seen that before. It's nothing bad about him. It's just I don't expect him to be some difference maker. So it's going to be more about if HeavyGod and IC can make up for the firepower that obviously especially Electronic brought to this lineup, and even Perfecto towards the end of that stint. After changing positions, he was doing pretty well. So that's kind of my main concern, and obviously the lack of experience on those two guys against the big teams. But overall, I don't hate the moves, because the ones that made perfect sense obviously didn't work for some reasons that are kind of hidden.
Yeah. Look, the thing I'm most excited about is see HeavyGod play against the tier 1 teams.
Yeah.
So we'll get to see that.
We saw like 2 games or something in some Blast showdowns, but a bit more now.
And we won't see them until Blast anyway. So they'll be playing at the same time as Liquid with.
Yeah, he's been. I mean, the few games that he's played against the decent teams, he's been performing pretty well. Yeah. Like he's played whatever. I'm looking through all the big teams, and like every time he's there. He's not just dropping off the face of the planet. He only played 5 against top 10 opponents, by the way, in all of his career, but against top 20, 108, which is pretty good. Especially for a guy in his positions. He's not exactly in star positions.
Well, they might come up here. Let's jump into this. Well, actually, their logo's probably not here. I think Dimitri built a tier list. Is that correct, Prof?
This is correct.
Okay, let's get into this. So we're going to do a tier list. I guess we're going to have to discuss how we're going to critique the roster changes. I guess that'll play a big role in this.
There's another one that just came in.
Another one?
That's the OG one. We have continued to search for correct roles over this slower market period. However, we still need to meet the roster deadlines accordingly. As such, we will be fielding a roster that includes Thomas, who will take on the role of in-game leader for the Blast Fall groups.
Thomas?
Yes.
That's actually more exciting than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Good luck to you, Thomas. I hope that you find success and you can bring OG out of the darkness in Counter-Strike, which they have always been ever since they decided to come into the game. Good luck, you ginger. All right. Yes, Prof, here we go. You were saying.
Yeah, we have the tier list. I'm sharing it over here.
Okay. Massive
we actually
upgrade.
do have Cloud9.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Massive upgrade, mid, downgrade, massive downgrade. Okay, so we've got a bit of a spectrum going on here. Into the Breach. Can we start with them?
Yes.
Okay.
Massive upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, we can probably, we can say that. We can say that.
What even was the...
Basuta, Bemis?
Yeah, that was the last one.
Honestly, massive upgrade.
Crucial, Rallen, Thomas, Basuta, Bemis was the last full roster that played together.
Honestly, all of these players, pretty good. Will they do anything together? We don't know.
But they can all shoot.
they can all shoot. They all have like some decent experience playing, you know, major qualifiers, stuff like that. I mean, the two Bad News Eagles guys did quite a bit. Boros back in the day with
Bob Ross.
with his playoffs in Paris. You know, I think Smuya, obviously, whatever you want to say about him, always, not always, but usually performs pretty well, even in these stand-ins for fours speaking Russian and stuff like that. So I think massive upgrade. Also super excited to just watch this team and see what's going to happen, because the level of personality, except I mean, even KSCERATO is kind of a fun guy.
Shouty.
Yeah,
He's kind of a fun
shouts.
guy as well. So there's gonna be a lot of energy.
I feel like knowing Smuya and KSCERATO, this team might actually overcome Guild Eagles in terms of the loud levels that they will bring out. And even Boros is not a guy who's just like completely calm, is quiet and just not saying anything. So I feel like
I just hope they qualify for. I think like getting to lands is not gonna be
that's
easy.
gonna be hard. Yeah, that's gonna be
But
hard.
if they even some like smaller stuff, I think it's gonna be so fucking amazing.
And
It's
we're
gonna be
only
amazing.
measuring them by their previous roster, so it's an upgrade.
Yes.
Big upgrade.
oh yeah.
And probably just on an experience factor. I still don't think the team's going to be great, but it's an upgrade. They made the team older with the move of adding Rigon over Process. I think Process was 21.
I think it just adds a little bit of spice, because I don't think Process was really bringing much in terms of a difference maker or X factor or anything like that. And I think that's what Rigon is. He's obviously in positions where he's going to be very inconsistent. They're a little bit different. I was looking through, I guess there's going to have to be some adjustments. I would assume JDC is probably going to have to swap around a little bit just to make up or to create some space for Rigon. So I'm curious about how they're going to solve that. But he's a guy who's aggressive, who's going to take a lot of initiative, and so I like that from Big. I think they have a half decent roster that's one obvious change away from being good.
Okay.
Yeah. What did you change more?
I mean, isn't that obvious?
Tapson.
I think he's talking about the AWP. Yeah.
Pearson's been terrible, man. Like he's averaging below 1.0 as an AWP on the team, which is horrible.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not great. But yeah, they're a team who I put in the same category as Big. I mean, as Furia. They're just their national team, you know. Furia has to be an upgrade over Kai, like skullz for sure.
Yeah,
I guess even over Art, you can probably say, even though I guess that's maybe
an upgrade.
It depends on what you're comparing it to. I don't think it's reasonable to compare it to Kai. I don't think it's reasonable to compare it to Kai, because we always knew that was not the replacement. Like that was not a permanent solution.
He was there for 3 months. What was he on, a fucking Euro trip? You know, he's an Australian who's gone taking a fucking gap year or some shit. Like, what the fuck was that about?
I know.
Yeah. I just feel like, you know, if it's not like a slam dunk move. That's why I don't want to put it in a massive upgrade, if that makes sense. Like, is it better? Yes, it's better. Are we like, yeah, fuck yeah, this is what we were looking for? I'm not sure. I'm okay either way, but I'm leaning towards just upgrade.
Okay, just upgrade. Fine.
Yeah.
9. I don't even know who's on 9, bro.
I was just going to check again, because I'm sure I know, but I forgot completely.
Did I know?
Right.
Rouse, Refresh, Mantu, Masuta, Sound. Compared to what?
The Polish team, I guess.
Mid is the definition of this lineup.
Don't really care until I see them somewhere, I guess. Sound is good. I like Sound. I hope he gets some, like, an actual chance somewhere at some point if this team doesn't work out. So I can look out for him.
Throw fucking NRG in mid.
No,
I think that's an upgrade. We have a lot of polls in the chat, or what happened?
They're saying downgrade.
Oh, they're saying downgrade.
They think 9 is downgrade.
The thing is, like,
9 was
like compared to the team that went to the major, I guess you can say,
not comparing
like,
it to
who
that
knows,
roster,
but that's the thing, like, probably not.
No, I mean, before this they had like
Huku, Bambo,
Minio came back.
Tomiko.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, this is not. We're not talking about Minio, Goofy, Kyler, like Hades lineup. That's not.
I mean, it is an
lineup.
upgrade over the last roster, but overall, kind of not exciting.
So wait,
So-
people are saying compared to the Polish roster. Yeah, not the Polish roster that was good. The Polish roster that followed that didn't do anything.
Yeah, so the Polish roster that we're comparing it to is Miniokai, Kuku Bambo, MHL, Tomiko.
Yeah.
No one could name that roster in chat. Except like the one Polish guy.
The people are talking about a roster that existed like 2 years ago.
Yeah, bro.
Guys.
Is
Chill.
guys tell me is Wrinkle an upgrade to Fiflaren?
Oh my god. What game are we playing? Okay,
Right.
well you
All right,
wanted
let's
to
keep
put
going. Let's
you
keep
wanted to
going.
put
Ignore
NRG
the
not
chat.
in mid. Where
What
do
do
you put
you
NRG?
What are we talking about? Nitro returning,
The fucking Valorant player, bro.
bro. I'm
He'll play for 3 months and then he
I'm
leaves.
putting it in downgrade. I'm putting it in downgrade.
Shit.
What
Oh
are
my-
we talking about?
I
here?
thought we were okay.
What are we talking about here? Just
You're talking about Nitro being a downgrade over Walco.
I don't care. It's
Okay.
How can it be better? How can it be based on what? Based on what is getting a guy that has not played the game forever an upgrade on anyone, and who was in the game and didn't do
Not
anything
that long
last
ago
time.
that he left again.
Why did he leave? Because he was amazing.
Yeah, like if I look at it on a face like on complete merit, I mean, I don't think there's an argument that you can say it's a downgrade over time. The problem is like, do we actually expect him to stay this time? I think that's the question.
I don't,
That's
and
making
I
me-
don't care.
Right.
That's where I and that's not a dig at Nitro. He's a lovely guy. He's flip flopping more
It
than a
is annoying.
fucking
It
fish
is
out of
annoying,
water,
yeah.
bro. Like, what are we talking about?
You can put
What
it
is
in
the
mid.
last
I was
logo?
just being hate. I was just
What's-
being a hater.
What's the
That's
last
Pac-Man.
logo?
That's Pac-Man.
It's what?
No, it's BC
BC
Game. It's
Game.
the Guardians new team, but we can't put that anywhere because it's not
never had a roster
change.
before.
Yeah, they never had a roster.
No,
Just put him in mid then, and move NRG back to mid.
it's fine. It is mid, but I can't believe this is real. I just can't believe it. Can't believe this
Save-
team is real. I can't
Wait,
believe
Lucas,
anything.
Save G2 and Liquid for the end, bro. Save the gold, mate. We're gonna go through the other teams first. Bleed upgrade.
Yeah, I would
yeah.
say slight upgrade for sure, at least.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree with Kassad's statement. I only read the headline about Nexa and these stats and stuff. I agree. I think Nexa will be. I don't know what anything else the context of the comment was, but I think Nexa will be better on Bleed than he was on G2.
Yeah, I think he was also talking about how Faven wasn't comfortable in the role that he was given, and that it wasn't necessarily an indictment on him as a player that he was good replaced, just didn't fit the role that they needed him to fill. And he was doing pretty terribly towards the end, Faven, to be fair. So there's no question that this is going to be an upgrade.
What do you guys think about TSM?
This is
I mean-
let me just remind myself.
It's the
It's
Danish-
Valda,
there's the new
Nika,
Danish
Akor,
roster.
Altex, Xiphon.
I like it for the fact that like all these guys found a team, but all of it together doesn't really fill me with any excitement. Like
No.
all these guys, I'm glad are staying in some form on a team, but like I see a lot of these as like the final piece.
It's an upgrade over the previous roster though, which was Jax, Interz, Moto, those kind of guys.
I
Also,
guess.
like love all of them, but this is definition of washed team.
This is like North,
I
but
wouldn't
in
say washed.
2024.
Well,
This is like you washed your clothes and then you left it in the thing for like 2 days and you forgot
Jeez.
about it and you open it and
smells
it's like
moldy.
it's washed, but you need to wash it again. And that's it.
I do that too often. I do that every couple of days. man.
The analogy doesn't make any sense. I just wanted to share that frustration of living and being an adult.
Yeah.
No, all these guys have been in decent teams and had opportunities, and for sure 2 or 3 of these guys will bounce back and be like relevant again. But all of them together, the percentages just aren't there. Math doesn't work out for me.
It's
So,
not the finished. It doesn't look finished.
no.
It looks like the beginning of something that made.
But imagine if they, I don't know if you were about to say that, but imagine if they had
Booksy.
gotten BlameF and config as
Config.
they were supposed
Yeah.
to. That would have
Kerrigan.
been at least more interesting in that.
Yeah.
I'm just, you know, but yeah,
A-Core, Blame
exactly.
F,
Like
Config, Hooksy,
Nico
one more.
does.
the rifle, actually. Yeah.
Roy.
Okay. Okay, put TSM in upgrade because it's better than the last roster, but it should be
Not
mid.
mass, bro.
It's Danish bias.
Get your Danish. Yes.
It's still an upgrade, unfortunately.
It is an upgrade.
GamerLegion?
I mean,
So-
what are
I
we
mean-
talking about? Like, are we talking about the whole thing? Are we talking
think we're
about
just
snacks?
I think we're just talking about ZTR realistically because the other team was there for a while. So I think it's a downgrade.
I was talking about this last time when we were briefly touching on how it affects GL. I liked the idea of snacks as like the elder statesman on that team until he left for G2. So the fact that they're so young and they don't really have anybody experienced at the helm, maybe Ash is going to be enough. Maybe that's where they get that experience from. Maybe they DTR is going to work with him well, but I don't know. I'm just a bit worried that maybe they're going to need some time. I think
What do
they
you think,
expect
Chad?
that, but it's more like
I'm on a positivity redemption arc, so I wouldn't put anyone in downgrade or massive downgrade.
Fuck you, Chad.
I just think it's pretty mid. But I'm happy to leave it in downgrade if that's the consensus.
yeah.
That the
I mean,
two of
I
you
like
come to.
the GL roster as a whole. It's more like the last piece. I also don't dislike ZTR for any reason. It's more like, you know, you're putting it up against snacks, so difficult.
Yeah. Okay. Monte
Everyone's favorite team, Monte.
downgrade.
What did you just say about not wanting to put anybody in downgrade?
That's why I said it quietly.
So they lost Voro, they got Hades, and
They didn't continue with Haji.
and they got
Diha.
Diha.
Yeah.
I don't think that's bad,
I don't think it's good.
to be honest, but Hades is IGLing, which I think it's the reason why we can't say it's a downgrade. Yes, I think that's fair. But
I
honestly,
think overall, I don't hate it. It's more like Woro was actually really important to this team. It was
Yes.
kind of living and dying with him. So the fact that he left is what just fills me with a lot of concern. Like, he was by far the best player on this roster, especially after SDY left. So now that's like you can think of Diha as like a direct replacement for SDY, I suppose. And they kind of switched places if you think about it.
yeah,
I don't think
Vance,
that what we saw
Monte.
with Diha at the end of Vance is his real level. I do think that he's going to be better than that. But is that going to be enough for this team to actually work? I don't know. Seems like there's not going to be enough firepower.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is that the Monte guys, like LMBT coaching, they managed to extract more value out of all of the players than what they should have historically. And Hades and Diha both have potential, not to have potential. Like, we saw them play good at different times. So there's some angle there to be hopeful about. But I think it's still what Striker said about losing Voro. It makes the downgrade, unfortunately.
Okay, Cloud9, are we comparing them to their previous roster or the fact that they had no roster? Because I think we have to compare them
Got
to
to
their
be
previous
previous,
roster.
yeah.
Which
So
would
with
be
Hobbit
massive
Perfecto
downgrade.
Electronic, which would be. The problem is, like, when we know how it actually went, I don't know if you can necessarily say that.
Bro. Come on.
I know, but that's the point. Like, we actually expected a lot from this Cloud9, and then they didn't do anything.
But looking at the results were bad. So,
Like, do we think their results are going to be decent, or at least at the same level? So wait, I'm just looking through their results back because I forgot where they went out. I know they went out pretty early in most of this stuff, but they went
you
to the
just say the
playoffs
names
at the
again.
major.
Hobbit Perfecto Electronic, like name for name. The thing is, if we're using what we know happened as the context for this and not just looking at the roster, then it's still a downgrade. Like it either is downgrade or massive downgrade.
Yeah, but realistically, the top 8 at the major is the only thing that this roster achieved. The previous roster achieved. Everything else was just bombing out early.
We got to put someone in massive downgrade, and if it's Cloud9,
I agree with you.
I don't think the roster is that bad. I don't like. It's not that bad.
Yeah,
I agree with you on the
Icy's
name
not
value. I
proven.
agree with you on, like, piece for piece. Like there's no denying that. But knowing that it didn't work, I don't know if you can say that, you know?
Well, we can't say it's an upgrade.
It's not an
No.
upgrade.
So we can just put it in downgrade, but we can't put it anywhere
Put it
else.
in downgrade. Put it in downgrade. It's
Okay.
fine.
Okay. All right. Liquid. This is another one.
It's similar.
That would be a similar thing, yeah.
I would say
Straight down middle.
mid. Honestly, mid. Honestly, mid.
Okay. Is that because of the
Because-
compromises that were made with like
I don't
in-game
think-
leading and everything?
Yeah, I mean, nothing there. It's not like they made a massive upgrade signing. I think like JKS for skullz is better, but I also think Ultimate is huge question mark, and also the IGLing on Twistzz is a question mark. Therefore, I think it kind of neutralizes itself. I don't think it's an upgrade. I don't think it's a downgrade.
Yeah.
I think it's solving problems, and that's it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I am hoping that we will see more like aligned Liquid moving forward, because clearly this is going to be Twistzz team now, and he was the one building a lot of it. So hopefully that means that all this talk about having problems making it all fit together are going to be solved. I think JKS will help with that actually a lot, because he does fit in a lot of those positions. So,
And lastly, the show's least favorite team, G2 Esports, the team we always never talk about,
Except when we always talk about them.
but never. Where are we putting G2?
can you remove them from the massive downgrade for now?
Yeah, I
This
don't
is
like
just
that. That's
this is going to
upsetting me.
become a screenshot, and this is going to be just...
It's upsetting me.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess.
Okay, let's
I would-
break it down. Let's break it down. We had two changes. We had Hooksy for snacks, and we had
We have to put him mid
Nexa
as
for
well.
malbs.
We surely have to put him mid as well, because think about it. I know
It's
we
the
have
same problem with Liquid, basically.
well, it's an inverse problem when you think
Right,
about CT versus T sides, but also still question marks around a lot of the factors. Like, it's not that we know if Snack's going to game leader or not. He can, because he did it at GamerLegion and did it before that. But it's going to, how is this team going to work with him as the leader? And then malbs in new positions. And how is the give and take of all of that going to work? So
I think for me, and it kind of aligns for what we were doing here, is if we see that we have a player for player replacement where we see that this player should be better, that's an upgrade. But if we have player for player where it's either kind of similar, or it kind of cancels out, or it's just unknown how this is going to work, then we can't really say it's an upgrade. That's kind of the consensus that we found here.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's mid, because it's very could work, could be awful.
yeah, okay, yeah, put it in mid. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. I think you can say malbs is probably going to be pretty big upgrade over Nexa, but the problem is it's not a one-for-one replacement.
Yeah,
So
we
it's
have to
like
wait and see.
there's going to be a lot more that's going to go into that discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, that's the tier list for some of the roster changes. Obviously, the OG one we don't have our own and whatnot, but that's what we got. Let's jump into our next little sponsored bit. It's What Are the Odds? Brought to you by 1xBet. This is where you at home get to have your say. And this week, Prof, the question is...
I'll wait for it to show up, because I can't remember how I phrased it exactly.
I should have done a longer drum roll.
What are the odds malbs will have a better rating than skullz at EWC?
And that, friends, it lies a problem that we all have. Now, you at home, like I said, will get a chance to vote on Twitter or on Instagram, or what the kids used to be calling Twitter.
Let's put some information out there, just as people are going to start voting. Some things to keep in mind: FURIA are playing Navi first, G2 are playing Mongols first. It's not going to eliminate either of them, but chances are they're not going to come back from it, because they have to basically win the last chance stage, which is 7 other teams.
Yep.
Best of ones as well.
And and best of
we'll
ones.
get into that format. That's
So I'm
quite
just saying, like, for context's sake, and for people to have all the information to make a decision.
Obviously, malbs better form, probably better player than skullz. But where will skullz play? Where will malbs play? From the interview he did with Darth Mike,
Mike, yep.
he did say he's going to take anchoring roles. Malbs did. maybe like big site anchoring roles
And T-side map control.
and T-side map control, which is not the worst roles.
I mean,
in the world.
T-side should be good for him. T-side
Yeah.
should work.
Yeah.
T-side, he should get more or less what he wants.
So I feel like it should lean towards his side, but these are both two players coming into new rosters. How much will that affect everything?
malbs will get more action just purely because he will be playing more active roles on the T side, whereas skullz will be playing extremities, and I think he'll just be the bitch on both sides of the map. I think he will be the more passive as opposed to KSCERATO. So
They also have a harder matchup first round, so
I'm going to say by just pure productivity of what malbs might be able to deliver. And even, I'm going to go with malbs, and I'm going to go with 72%.
I was going to say 70 as well, so you can slap me on 70.
Yeah, I'll go with 80.
Okay.
Seems
Wow.
Yeah. Are we having the votes also going
Yeah, it's still tallying right now.
Let's see what the chat says. But
think
it seems
like realistically the odds maybe
cool.
are
87.
Oof.
there we go.
Jesus. Okay, the chat higher than us. That's crazy. Because, like, all
No
right.
faith in the FURIA young signing.
Maybe they're just all taking into consideration the positions.
I mean,
But it's also that malbs is obviously like much more of a star player than skullz ever was. So in terms of where he plays, how he plays,
maybe we
taking a
should
lot
have
more
gone
initiative.
with snacks. Or it's just looking at new signings and seeing like how they will perform and kind of doing some comparisons. But it will be seems like a pretty obvious selection here. Maybe easily adding a bit more money to the kitty, as we like to call it.
Well, now the way this works for everybody, you on social media will get a chance to vote. You can either go with the yes, which is going to net you $65 for the kitty, or 217 if you think we'll be wrong and you think skullz will get there. Maybe all of Brazilian Counter-Strike can get behind skullz on the social media and get the no vote coming through. But you guys can take part in that. That is 1xBet presenting What Are the Odds. All right, keep flowing. Let's keep rolling. Let's keep grooving. Let's keep shaking. Let's get into the fall season, which we've already prefaced a little bit. We showed the mountain graphic before, and we did all that jazz. We've also spoken about a lot of teams. We've also spoken a little about EWC. But first thing we're going to do before we get there is do Skinionaire. So from sponsor segment to sponsor segment. Is it me doing it? Is it Striker doing it? What's going on with this week's Skinionaire?
Who would like to do it?
Striker, you want to do it?
I haven't done a lot. I haven't done one in a while. So
Yeah,
let's do
okay.
it.
All right. Well, Skinionaire brought to you by Trader.gg. If you're interested in taking part, type Trader in chat right now. That'll be your raffle ticket to enter the draw for what could potentially be a $50 skin voucher to use at your leisure over at Trader.gg. All right. Multiple choice questions, 5 of which every correct question moves the slider up, and somebody will be going home with that voucher. Let's get into it. Question number 1. Which team was... I'm going to call him Seed, working for before becoming Furia's coach? Was it Fluxo, Pain, or Furia with an exclamation point?
We were talking about this. He was in the academy team, right? So Furia.
Working in Furia. The correct answer is Furia. All right, 1 for 1. Nice soft start. Question number 2. Before joining BCgame as coach, Guardian played for
Sampy.
Lock it in. Sampy. It was
It's a
Sampy.
Slovakian organization, so
But sometimes we have audio-only listeners, Striker, and they
Or
would have
check,
loved
actually.
to have known both. All of the options, which was
Sorry, the other
Sampy,
ones was-
Singularity, and Sinners.
Yeah.
All right. Let the host finish asking the question next time, mate. Question number 3. Who is not on the new TSM roster? Is it A, Altex, B, TMB, C, Xiphon? Or
TMB.
Xiphon?
well,
Been listed there.
Honestly, if I didn't see
Technically-
this before, one of the hardest questions ever to be asked on Skinionaire.
Okay, 3 out of 3. We're flying through this one. Question number 4. Who's the highest rated with 50 maps played, no filters, player from Oceania in 2024? Is it A, Addict, B, Ins, or C, Netic from New Zealand?
I was just looking at Netic because I was writing about it in the news. I don't think he was that high, and everybody in Oceania is fucking inflated as hell because they're playing, like the top 8 team there is is obviously nothing comparable to anything in Europe or anywhere outside of that.
But
This would be this. That's the thing. Like Inz has been playing well against the top teams, but he hasn't played so much against some of these other guys in Oceania. I mean, Inz is an obvious one. I still want to go with that one. I'm not 100% sure though. I feel like this could be a curveball.
I'm gonna have to press you for an answer, Striker.
I did.
You've already answered. Oh, well, I think you're gonna be wrong. Let's see. Correct answer is Attic.
It was actually him. Okay.
Yeah, he farms everybody in Oceania. He is lead farmer. Also, Addict is also from New Zealand as well. So respect to the New Zealanders.
Anything else you know about this guy? Except that he's joining Talon with AZR.
He shoots good.
Yeah.
I can't. Well, I don't know. I'll ask the Talon guys if I can start talking about it or not.
Okay. He's been one of the guys that people have been talking about as like the next FlyQuest player. So possibly somewhere down the line. He's been on the same team for like 4 years, man. It was kind of crazy to me. He's been there since he was like 16 on Rooster.
Yeah. I think I've spoken that like people should be aware that I've been advising Talon for some time now. I've mentioned it a bunch. There'll be, I don't know if there'll be news. I don't know what they're doing with an announcement, and I don't want to spoil the party and all the fun and stuff. But obviously, it's only really a big one for the region. I don't think the world Counter-Strike scene is going to have too much interest in it. It's just one of the things that I would have been advising the FlyQuest guys to do when they were Greyhound as well. And I think one of the reasons they didn't go with Talon and went with FlyQuest instead is because I said to them that if they hadn't had better results come Dallas, that I would be pushing the org to look for roster changes in 2 positions, and one of them would be getting a European AWPer. So maybe that's why they went with FlyQuest. So my bad.
Yeah.
I just thought it's important to be honest.
Sure.
I just, okay. Well, we can only get 4 out of the 5, but that's all right. Question number 5. Fuck, I lost my tab. Which player is not on the new Revan team led by MBK? Nevera, Lonks, or Sound?
We were just talking about Sound, so him.
Locking it in. C, correct answer is Sound, and that's going to be a $15 voucher for trade.gg given to one lucky winner. Lucas is going to put their name in the chat, and their name is Daily Tion. Daliation? DA1LYT1ON. Congratulations. Our people will reach out to your people and get you your voucher to use at trade.gg for some skins of your choice. All right. Skinionaire done. We're keeping up the fun in games. Okay, we spoke about it. There's going to be a whole season ahead of us. It's going to be starting with the Esports World Cup next week. 15 teams attending that one. We'll talk about that event next, but let's do some big predictions. We did it at the start of the year. We did a little time capsule for different little markers. Who's going to be the team of the season? Who's going to win the major? Who's going to have roster changes? And we're going to do it again right now because it's something great that we can return back to throughout the season, check in after the major, see how right or how wrong we were. So we have that one ready and raring to go. And I'll say, Lucas, do you have the link, or would you like me to send it to you? Okay, I'll send the link into right now. There you go. You can whack that one up, and we'll get going with it. So this one has the same those questions or predictions. The predictions would probably be better that are being made, and those are going to be: don't make the major, Shanghai Major MVP, Shanghai Major winner, team of the season, and team to make roster changes. Now, I've already filled mine out, so we can start with mine, or we could just go, oh, Prof's filling his out right now.
I filled mine out as well. Even though I'm
you can go first. I
one.
didn't fill anything.
Well, that's all right. I went with pretty straight shooting. Last time round, I predicted that NRG and Greyhound wouldn't make the major. This time I've gone for something which is probably equally as consumable, digestible for the audience. Yeah. I'm going with Falcons not making the major. Okay. I think they probably tried to make roster changes throughout the break, but here's the thing. With an organization like Falcons, they're a team that has to win. So if they have another shit season, they will 100% be very aggressive roster changes, I would assume, going forward, with big personnel getting cut from that team and hopefully looking to pick up some bigger names. And I think I went with FaZe players. I think I had Rops as major MVP and I had FaZe winning the major last time round. So this time round, I'm going to go with Spirit. I think another 4 or 5 months under their belt of playing top tier Counter-Strike, if they can continue to pick up where they left off, they don't have to win everything. They just need to peak for the major, get some more reps and arenas under their belt and play a few more tournaments, unlike some of the ones they missed for the last season. So I'm going to go with Donk as the major MVP. I'm going to go with Spirit as the major winners, which would make Team Spirit the team of the season. And I think Na'Vi will make roster changes. So nothing too crazy there.
All right.
I wouldn't say. Okay. What do you got, Striker? Let's flick to Strikers if we can. Lucas.
I didn't want to go with Falcons for don't make a major, so that I think would have been kind of an obvious one. Maybe another obvious one also would be Cloud9. I don't even know if they're going to get invited, man, because they don't have a core. So that's obviously already one step that they have to pass. They have to do well at the groups, and they probably have to play some other stuff, some online stuff, if they want to make it to the whatever it is, top 48, right, in Europe. So already from that angle, it's going to be difficult. And I think even despite that, it's probably coming too quickly for a team that's just changed the entire core. Even though as we said, I don't hate this roster. I actually do think that they are capable of making it to majors. I just think maybe it's going to be too early.
Okay.
And Shanghai Major, I was going somewhat similar to last time. Last time I went with Vitati winning and Donk getting the MVP, which honestly wasn't such a crazy punt in the end. This time I'm going with Miles winning and Donk getting the MVP. So let's see if second try. This is a bit of a, honestly, I don't know if I actually believe this.
An outsider pick for sure.
It is an outsider pick. It's more like, I think the trajectory is there, and it's more about Miles getting over the arena hurdle, if there was even one. A lot of the arena games they lost to FaZe. And FaZe are on the way down, so hopefully if they meet them again, it's not going to go the same way as so far. They're probably going to break that streak. So I don't know. I think they really have an impressive roster. I think they will be somewhere in the discussion for a win at the major, and I just think they're one of the few teams that actually have been able to beat Spirits, and that's why I feel like they might beat them in a final. But Donk is going to be the MVP because none of Maos are going to be standing out enough to get the MVP over a guy like Donk. So that's just kind of my thinking around it. Just figured I would not go with something as obvious as just Spirit winning the major.
Okay, still having this team of the season, and then
yeah, exactly.
To make roster changes, Falcons and VP.
Yeah, I think VP.
The VP one's interesting.
VP one, I think the writing is kind of on the wall. With I did an interview with the VP CEO, who was kind of saying how this electronic signing kind of gives a sign to a lot of the big players from the region that VP is here to make some big changes. And I think there's one that's not perfect. There's one specific one, but maybe that one could be very obvious. Obviously, Monte, but he's probably not leaving G2 anytime soon. Not in time for this to come true, I think. But realistically, I think there's definitely a world where they will undergo more changes, because just this electronic one isn't going to be enough to change the team, and that might as well come right after the major. I don't think it's going to be until the major, because they're probably going to qualify even if they're not going to do well at the major. But I don't think that this trajectory that they've been on is going to change necessarily too much. Maybe they're going to have a decent result here and there, but if they have a good enough upgrade like a Perfecto, I think they're going to jump on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Perfecto makes a lot of sense, and we'll see what else.
Falcons, I think, is a super obvious one. By the way, I think I expected one to happen this season already, but I don't know if they
couldn't get anyone. That's
what I was thinking. Maybe they just couldn't get anybody good enough that would have actually changed anything about this team. So I think it's just a matter of time.
All right, let's jump into Profs, if we could, please, Lucas. Thank you. All right, Prof, talk us through your homework.
I'm doing it last minute, so I actually went for kind of exactly what Striker went with. So then I kind of changed it. Shanghai in terms of the major winner, major MVP, and team of the season. So I think I did the inverse now. So don't make the major. I put complexity. I know they should, and I know they're playing in an NA, which is not that bad. But I think with some other upgrades, maybe there's a maybe there's a chance for some fuck ups. I feel like they didn't really do anything new. They're just sticking to their guns, which could bite them in the ass come RMR.
You were showing that they were the longest standing team out of the 10 teams you were looking at. Right?
Out of the ones I listed, yeah, they've been together for 12 months. The next is Mongols at 10.
I just think, I don't know. I feel like they could have and should have made some moves, but whatever. Anyway, I guess it also is difficult because of the whole organizational change and like Jason Lake buying it back. They are probably focused just on making things work and kind of building up the org again outside of the Game Square ownership. For Shanghai Major, I went with Spirit and Donk MVP. Obviously, you kind of want to back the big players, which is like Monte, Donk, and Zaiwu, but G2 is complete question mark, and Vitality has been hit and miss. So I believe Spirit make a lot of sense, and the other one would be Mouse. I think Mouse will be really good, and that's why I went for them as team of the season, because I think they can have that consistency to be the best team of the season.
Prof, they've only been beating everybody because of this fucking Razer keyboard that Jimmy's put out there, the fucking snap tap, whatever it's called.
Yeah, but
it's the counter to the donk slide.
But this is now you're using like memes against me. Using yokes.
I just wanted to talk about the keyboard because this one.
No, the Razer, keyboard, but the keyboard apparently G2 used it in Dallas.
I was talking shit. I was
I am just putting it out there. Like it does make sense. It's a great argument, but a lot of people, and I know some FaZe players were using some Razer stuff through the events. So it's not like just because the mouse is sponsored by Razer that they are the only one using this.
They're doing it labs Armstrong. They've got fucking.
I don't know. I haven't used this actually, but everyone told me it's fucking ridiculous.
It's like the D-subtick binds that I tweeted.
Yeah,
about.
I lent it to a certain Czech player. I'm not gonna say his name because I don't know if he's okay to possibly promote let's say competing brands. But he told me exactly what it does within 10 seconds. Like that's how quickly he saw the difference. I didn't tell him, like I just told him, okay, here's this thing that's apparently fixes movement. I didn't tell him exactly what it does. He just tried it out for 10 seconds and it told me what it does. So that's how big of a change it apparently is.
Does anyone want to explain how it works? Chad,
I don't know. I'm not. I would need Rush.
I mean, effectively. I mean, I think Rups explained it the best way. That effectively it is kind of like a macro thing where if you're ADing, like if you're counter strafing, you're like as you press A and then you press D, the D is completely going to override the previous command of the A, so like you stop way more quickly, like you counter strafe way more quickly, way more accurately, which just makes it kind of impossible for you to make a mistake or overstep too far because just the response is much faster, in terms of going the other way, if you're like corner peeking and things like this.
This to me doesn't feel right though. Like we're putting like little computers in our keyboards. Doesn't make sense. It's not pure input.
But the thing is, what we were talking about before, because we already had this discussion regarding Wu-Ting keyboards a little while ago, right? About the I forgot the term, but it's about how sensitive the keys would be.
Yeah.
So the actuation of the key and the release point on the key. This is that on steroids, right? So you're going to come into areas where I'm curious how this stuff would be policed for online Counter-Strike if they did want to police it. For LAN, obviously, it's something they can do. I only learned the other day that there's certain monitors that get sold out there where you can have a crosshair built into the monitor. So
I mean, that's been the case for like 20 years.
I know, but I didn't know that because I don't use fucking dog shit brand monitors. I only use the good one. And when I heard that, I was like, people, like, I know it would really help you with an AWP or a scout, but imagine always having an AWP or a scout with a crosshair at all times.
I mean, people, the joke is that like people on like local LANs and stuff or like people at home would just like paint paint
Oh, yeah,
a
which is
dot in the middle
ridiculous,
of their monitor. I mean, I did that when I was like 11 or some shit, you know, like as I was studying in CS and learning the op. Like it's actually quite a useful tool,
So
but obviously not to use in like professional competitive setting.
Yes, Lucas?
I know it's not the Counter-Strike, but there are monitors out there now with AI built in that when you play League of Legends, it automatically looks at your minimap and then it will paint like red areas where there's enemies close to you and warn you in the middle of the screen so you don't have to like watch the game anymore, like the minimap.
So, like you don't have to look at the minimap.
Yeah,
and
so
stuff.
imagine, a monitor that looks at your minimap in CS, and if your friend like spots a guy in smoke, it will warn you if you're looking towards the guy. Like, that's hardware cheat?
Yeah, that's cheating.
Yeah, so it's kind of questionable for me. I know Michal Slavinsky tweeted that it's okay to be used, but I'm also curious why. What's the logic, and where do we draw the line? Because it seems very like I'm bad at counter strafing. I feel like this is like I should be bad at counter strafing. It shouldn't fix it for me by just
The problem is the movement
overriding
in
it.
Counter-Strike is still dog. Like in CS2, it's not. Like, the biggest issue I had with CS2 in the beginning, and the reason I tweeted out those D subtick binds, is because it made movement feel better, less slidey for me. And I think it was probably something to do
This
with
does
network.
that as well, by the way. Yeah.
But that right there, that's huge, right? Obviously, the counter-strafing thing is the key component of this. But fuck, I hated the way CS2 felt in the beginning. I felt like I could never. I was just always sliding, and to D-subtick it kind of helped. Do you guys see the Freakazoid clip on Reddit the other day with the
the jump bug thing?
Jump, yeah.
And I've also been talking with Valve in DMs just briefly, nothing crazy, but about the boost. I told them like 2 weeks ago or whatever that the boost bug still exists, and they wanted me to start sending demos of rounds where it happens, but I told them you can't see it. So, but they still wanted me to send a couple of demos, which I have done. And I had it happen with me and Harry the other day on Ancient, and then we went in a server immediately after and tried it in the exact same position, and it doesn't trigger. So I even was able to. Yeah, I clipped because the new thing that Steam have added, which is fucking awesome, like your video getting recorded, that's so good. So you can clip everything all the time. I just have that going, and if any of the bugs happen, I just clip that immediately and just fucking send it. So that's hopefully they can find the fix for that, because that's that I think is one of the biggest issues at the moment. Some of the movement things and definitely the boost. Okay.
Let's go back to my thing. I didn't finish. I think
Oh, you're on the slide. Bring the slide back up, Lucas.
I changed my don't make the major. I put in Eternal Fire. That's the vibe. That's the vibe I'm getting from Eternal.
Okay.
I think it's more reasonable just because of the NA thing with complexity. More likely. I didn't finish with team to make roster change. I put FaZe and Navi. I think Navi pretty obvious. Everyone, but I feel like there's something's gonna happen in FaZe. I feel like this is not gonna be the season that they want it to be, and there will be some changes. That's my complete vibe.
All right. Well, we'll take this out back, we'll bury it, and we'll dig it up in 6 months' time once we get to the end of the season, and we'll see how we all fared with our little time capsule predictions. All right, let's jump into the final piece.
You didn't talk about FaZe and Navi making changes, no?
What?
I just said talk about.
He said Navi's obvious, and then he said for FaZe, he doesn't think it's going to be the season that they hope it's going to be.
Okay.
And yeah.
Then I stopped listening for the 5 seconds that he said that.
Bro, zoned out.
It's all good. All right, let's get into this. EWC weird format. That's the main conversation point. They're not going to do anything too crazy with predictions because we can't really. We haven't had any teams playing. The key is going to be the format. So, Lucas, I'll send the link in here, and you're going to have to play along with little drop-down tabs as we talk through the format. So, it's 15 teams, which is already curious. And you're asking yourself, why is it 15 teams? Well, everybody, let's show you. So we'll bring this up. The first one at the opening stage.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, like, I can make it very simple how this works.
Well, it's not that it's not simple.
That's the point. Like, it looks whack, but it's actually extremely simple.
But I think the thing is, it's very different, which makes it quite curious for people, right? It's not just like broken up into 2 different groups with a 16-team event like you might expect from ESL, for example.
Sure.
It's not a format where you win 2 games and you're automatically in the playoffs. It's actually, this opening stage is hugely important, and considering the context of this being the first event out of the break, it's insane how important this first best of 3 is, especially in matchups like VP versus Complexity, maybe Navi versus FURIA to some extent, right? If you're G2 versus Mongols, because this is the opening round, it's 7 best of 3s, and winning the best of 3 here will put you into the playoff bracket, right? The
better way to think about it is basically as just a single elimination bracket with just like a second chance for the first round losers, effectively, because whoever comes out of the 8 losers of the first round will just join the next round of the playoffs, effectively. Like, it is basically a 16 team single elimination, except the first round you actually get a second chance. So it's not even that round that, like, everything else is just single elimination. The first round is actually not that important because you still get a chance. Obviously, you have to win out of 8 teams in the next stage, but it's still a second chance.
I would say it's important because...
Of course, it's the same. It's less important than winning the next game, because that actually eliminates you, and then winning the next game, which actually eliminates you.
Sure, but the thing with this opening round is, with the context of it being the first game of the new season,
in
like
terms of
Sashi
advancing you through the event, of course.
But think about how crazy upsets would be in this first round and what ramification they would have. If we have 2 or 3 upsets in the first round, and you're going to have a loser from VP Complexity, right?
Yeah.
So think about how crazy a single elimination best of 1 bracket could be. So that's the first component. And also, I think that if people look at what they just saw and think that that's how the bracket's going to flow, which surely it can't be like that, right? Because then it would be malbs versus Spirit if they both win in the next round. Like that couldn't be the case,
that doesn't seem
they
right.
Would be
Especially if you look at lower down, it's just FaZe and G2 on one side with no other top.
Going to be seeded after.
Hopefully. Now this is the best of 1s where GG How is at already.
So it's essentially first day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 best of 3s first day, and then all of the best of 1s are being played the second day, and then one round each. Then you kind of move into the playoffs that are best of 3.
Yeah. But it's a curious format. It's a very unique looking format, and I'll be in considering how cutthroat it is with the start to the new season and a couple of new rosters in there. It should be interesting. It's not as soft as a Blast group stage to start that we've had for the last couple.
It's about as much to the other side as it almost possibly could be, except for the first round.
Yeah, but I look, I always like something a little bit different. I don't know how I feel about this, considering how much prize money's up for grabs at this event. It's like 400k first prize. There's also broader context which our fans won't really care about, or Counter-Strike fans won't really care about, which is for EWC, it's a bit more like a syndicate type thing for a shitload of prize money. So depending on how you do across all of your games, if you're the top org over all of your games, you can win $7 million or something.
A lot of money, yeah.
So it's weird that that's the case, considering the timing with our game and what our teams are going to be really gunning for at the start of this, which isn't necessarily going to be the W. But
yeah, I feel like in like Dota and some other esports, it's very big. In CS is just a tournament that no one really cares about that much, to be honest. It's just a tournament. The format is, I don't know why it's like this. I'm impressed that someone would come up with this. I feel like you have to be on drugs to come up with this kind of a format. Like, it's so, like, how do you even get like 15 teams? And it's like, okay, we'll figure out a way to make this work. But okay, whatever. I don't think it's fair, or that makes a lot of sense, that like losing the first one is fine, but losing the second game is not fine. I think it's just okay, whatever. But it's a tournament. I think it has all the best teams, which is like top 9 teams ranked according to HLTV right now in the world. So it's going to be important. You can't really ignore it either, regardless of all of the hating Saudi and the Esports World Cup. It's not really something you can be like, let's just not talk about this, because it is CS after all that we talk about every time.
Yeah. Well, who's missing? Heroic?
Who's number 10 actually?
Heroic's number 10. Heroic's 10.
Astralis. Yeah. Wait. Yeah, Astralis are not there.
Is 8. So
yeah. I missed
so it's 6. Yeah, so it's top 7 plus 9.
Yeah. So
Liquid also didn't qualify. back whenever they were supposed to qualify. So they're also missing from like the big teams.
Funnily enough, Falcons, who have like this amazing fucking esports rosters, and they're probably gonna win the whole fucking game-wide thing. They're not even playing in this tournament for CS.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, so I don't think there's any point us doing predictions, right? Coming out of the player break, it doesn't really make much sense. I think upset potential is at an all-time high at moments like this. So I just think the headlines read G2 debut and FURIA debut. Otherwise, it's about teams picking up where they left off last season or hoping for better seasons this time round. And
do you know anything about who is boot camping, who's not boot camping? I know that Spirit
started. In Malta.
Yeah. And G2's in Serbia, and that's more or less. I haven't seen much, to be honest. I haven't been on the.
I don't think FaZe are boot camping for this. I don't think so.
I haven't seen.
So I think they're just practicing from home. Yeah, I don't know.
I kind of feel like Spirit are the guys that like didn't do anything except play CS the whole summer.
Yeah, Spirit is boot camping for sure. I saw something.
Navi boot camping.
And then G2 are boot camping for sure. And then I don't know what else.
It's probably the only time you're going to get to boot camp before
Navi makes exactly. Navi makes sense because they were talking about this for a while, that they haven't gotten a good boot camp in for a while and that they wanted to do that in the off season. So makes sense.
Okay, well, this tournament starts on Tuesday next week. And yeah, that's about it. And we're back underway. And
Wednesday.
Is it? No, it can't be Wednesday.
It is Wednesday.
How can it be Wednesday? Is it really Wednesday?
It is Wednesday.
Fuck,
it's 5 days.
I thought it was starting on Tuesday.
No, it's 5 days.
Why am I flying in on Monday then? Fucking.
I mean, Tuesday is probably media
Tuesday
day, right?
Media, yeah, that does make sense. Okay, never mind. It all works out in the wash there, doesn't it? Okay, we'll be back for an episode on the 23rd. That's Tuesday, the 23rd of July. And then we're going to do one just before Blast Group start on like Sunday the 4th. I saw someone ask in the chat a little bit earlier if we could announce shows earlier.
Yeah.
So we'll try and do that. Sometimes it's not easy with how we get from point A to point B and everything that's going on, but we'll do our best. This upcoming season, we'll probably try and do a couple of different things, and we'll see how we go with that. But yeah, I think that's about it, gentlemen, isn't it?
Yeah. If people have any thoughts on maybe some stuff that we did before on Confirmed that they liked or shit like that, some updates are coming. So please let us know on YouTube comments or wherever DMs. That would be nice.
All right. Well, that's been another episode of HLTV Confirmed, brought to you by our sponsors, 1xBet and TradeIt.gg. He's been Prof, Striker, Lucas, and I've been myself. I hope everybody enjoyed their time. 2 hours and 10 minutes. We'll be back, as I said, in a week and a bit's time. Counter-Strike starts up next week. So good night and enjoy your weekend.
Are you tired of your boring old skins? Head to Trade It and trade them for exciting new ones within seconds. With 24/7 support, massive inventory, free giveaways, and low fees. Trade It is the highest rated trading platform in the market. What are you waiting for? Start trading today for a $5 bonus, only on Trade It.
But one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph, and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at HLTV.org/shop.